on BBC Television. For the younger viewers at 11:45 on BBC One, The Herbs and Problems for Bayleaf the Gardener.
Where's me barrow? Someone's stolen me barrow.
This brings Constable Knapweed to the Herb Garden at 11:45 to solve the mystery. At 12 o'clock, another cartoon comedy adventure with all your favourite characters in Motor Mouse and It's the Wolf. Followed at 12:20 by Outer Space.
Welcome aboard. Our course is set for a journey through time, space, and musical dimensions. Flight plan as follows.
Embarkation in Time Zone 1, pre-Earth history.
Transit orbit for music of the spheres. Landing in the star galaxy. Embarkation in universe of continuing tales.
A surprise request stop.
Outer Space at 12:20 on BBC One. Then on BBC Two, at an earlier time of 4:10, Play Away with Brian Catt.
And I'm singing a happy song.
We're not miserable, are we?
At 5:05, a new series returns to BBC One.
We want to sing!
Who wants to sing?
We want to sing!
With an audience of 300 children, the return of We Want to Sing, introduced by Ken Dodd with special guests middle of the road. Some programmes on BBC Television, Saturday.
Now on BBC One, it's time for another adventure in space and time with John Pertwee and the Police Box.
Quarantine session! What do you mean, oi, Mr. Quarantine session!
So, as we were saying before we were so rudely interrupted, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the corner of Doctor Who fandom that tonight presents to you a 20-foot lizard. Take that, Springwatch. This is what you pay your licence fee for. It's the Police Box Live. Tonight, we reach the penultimate case in our trial of Series 8 of Doctor Who, with Colony in Space going before the court. Colony in Space, of course, features the Third Doctor's first voyage into space since being exiled to Earth, with a trip to the distant planet of Xarius, at the behest of the Time Lords, in order to prevent the use of a doomsday weapon. Of course, this being Doctor Who, barely any time at all after landing is passed before the Doctor and Jo are kidnapped by the planet's indigenous race, the Primitives, and are led to their leader, the Guardian, a tiny, grotesque version of the Primitives, who, befitting for a creature of such stature, is housed within a recessed panel in the building's foundations, slowly emerging to greet our time-travelling duo. Talking of which, I'm joined as ever tonight by two men who themselves are no strangers to having a small, shrunken, shrivelled head thrust expectantly at them through a small hole in the wall. It's Cameron Phillips and David Cummings.
Straight to the gutter then.
Always.
Yeah.
Cloud of depths. Yep. Straight away.
Every time I watch these things, I'm like, what is Lee going to do to turn this into something else?
What filth is he going to present?
Yeah, I was going down the road of like two men who have an interest in domes or something like that. That's where I was kind of going with that. But obviously, you went subterranean with
I would go so Route 1. Come on, you know me.
I know. Jeez.
Smoking daggers, smoking mirrors.
See, I thought he was going to go with an interest in miners or something like that. That's what he was going to go
for. Yeah, we could have had that. Yeah, that would have been.
I'll save that for the next. I'll save that for the Green Death if I ever do that again.
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, sorry, Cam.
No, carry on.
Okay, I will do. I'll do just that. Good evening, everyone. As we said, it's a penultimate trial of this series, for the stakes are high, and tonight we'll find out whether or not this series of the Police Box Live will go down to the wire next week. The result of the trial of colony in space holds the key tonight, but serving this sort of justice is simply too big an ask for just the three of us. So once again, we've thrown open the courtroom doors and invited in another special guest to help us out. So let's introduce him. Now, it's not often on the Police Box Live that we get to draw parallels between the worlds of Doctor Who and football. Thankfully, being a fan of both, our guest tonight allows us to do just that. He's recently sat through 2 separate seasons, the Premier League and Series 2 of Doctor Who, both helmed by men who are steadfast in their own ideas, backed by foreign investment, unwilling to be shaken from their visions, and heading for a huge climax in the face of monumental opposition. The only difference being that as a Newcastle United fan with a first trophy in 56 years, at the end of it all, he's got something pleasurable to look back on. Making his return to the Police Box Live is the one and only Mr. Frazer Gregory.
Thank you for that. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for having me back.
How are you, Fraser? All good?
Yeah, all good. Enjoying the heat. By enjoying, I mean not at all, but yeah.
And is it the heat or is it still the hangover from the League Cup win?
It's the heat. It's the heat.
Okay.
You don't get a hangover until you stop drinking, basically, so and stop celebrating. So still going.
That'll be another 56 years then.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Before we descend into petty bickering with our guests, mere minutes after we've introduced them, shall we have a look at the series results so far?
Let's go.
Let's do that then. So, series results so far. First up was Terror of the Autons. That was found guilty by 57% to 43%. Then The Mind of Evil went before the court. That was found not guilty by 78% to 22%. And last time round, The Claws of Axelos went on trial in the company of Paul Quinn and Joe Ford. And that was found not guilty by 67% to 33%. All of which means that Dave leads the series 2-1 with 2 trials remaining. And if he wins tonight, will be series champion for this series.
Yep.
It could all end here. You know.
Hopefully.
Well, if there's any justice.
Yeah. Justice needs
any
to
justice. Well, we know sometimes, we need to, send down these people. It can't be all, these things that crop up. It doesn't matter if you bought them on VHS when your parents got divorced. It's, it needs sent down.
Well, if Dave does win the series, he will get to pick what we do next. He might do that tonight. He might do that next week when we do the Demons. But there will be something for you to get your teeth in at the end of tonight's episode. We'll reveal more about that at the end of the episode. So then, without any further ado, should we just crack on with tonight's proceedings?
Play the plan.
Might as well. That's the format, etc.
That is indeed the format, etc., etc. It's time then to go back for the penultimate time to 1971, the rock and roll years. Will the defence mine this story and present it as a sparkling jewel in Doctor Who's crown, or will the prosecution prove that it's just the pits? Let's find out as we put Colony in Space on trial. Colony in Space was written by Malcolm Hulke, directed by Michael E. Bryant, and was produced by Barry Letts with music from Deadly Dudley Simpson. It starred John Pertwee as the Doctor, Katie Manning as Jo, Nicholas Courtney as Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart and Roger Delgado as the Master, with Graham Lehman, Peter Forbes Robertson and John Baker as the Time Lords, John Ringham as Ash, Helen Worth as Mary Ash, David Webb as Leeson, Sheila Grant as Jane Leeson, John Tordoff as Alec Leeson, Nicholas Pennell as Winton, John Lyne as Martin, Mitzi Webber as Mrs. Martin, Roy Skelton as Norton, Maurice Perry as Captain Dent, Bernard Kay as Caldwell, John Harrington as Holden, Tony Conter as Morgan, Stanley McGee as Alan, Pat Gorman as Long, Roy Human as the Alien Priest, and Norman Atkins as the Guardian. It was broadcast between Saturday the 10th of April and Saturday the 15th of May 1971, and the viewing figures were 7.6 million for Part 1, 8.5 million for Part 2, 9.5 million for Part 3, 8.1 million for Part 4, 8.8 million for Part 5, and finally 8.7 for Part 6. Those are the stats and the numbers. Let's do what we always do first. It's time to call this court to session.
This court is now in session.
The trial of Colony in Space is underway. Here's who's doing what tonight. Dave will be defending Colony in Space alongside the champion of the damned himself. And Cameron will be prosecuting it. So, without any further ado, let's start. Oh, sorry, Dave. Yes?
What's this nonsense? Defending colonoscopy in space?
No idea how that got there. No idea.
I thought you were meant to be impartial.
Nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. Must be. It's a quirk in StreamYard. We know all the problems we had with it last week. It must be. Some sort of tech issue.
Don't tell us we've got another bent adjudicator.
You know what they say, cowards always blame the technology.
I'm saying nothing because I want to keep my job. Let's get started with this.
This is the law. Chapter 1.
Once again, we've thrown open the courtroom doors to invite you, the viewers, to take to the stand and give your evidence in the trial of Colony in Space. So let's get cracking. We've got a fair bit to get through. First up is Andrew, who says it's one of my favourite Pertwees. I think it has strong characters throughout, played well by the cast. The scene between Joe and the Doctor when the TARDIS first lands is one of my favourites. Katie brilliantly portraying her fear at the unknown, opposed with Pertwee's words on why the Doctor travels.
Yep. Okay. I see.
Positive.
Yeah.
Fairly positive. Well, you can.
These are very good points there. Yes.
And we will. Is Andrew new?
I think so. I'm not
welcome,
entirely sure.
Andrew.
What you say is welcome, Andrew.
I'm assuming if it's your first time, welcome.
One man who's definitely not a newbie and an old hand in the Post Box Live is Daniel Knight, who says not guilty, but it's pushing its luck at 6 episodes, especially the many times the balance of power shifts from the colonists to IMC and back again. But the cast is strong and the location works suitably bleak. Love the episode 5 cliffhanger of the Master's control device that looks like a cherry bakewell. He's not wrong.
It does. It is in my notes that it does. It's the deadly cherry bakewell.
It's the genius of my cult. He makes exceedingly good cliffhangers.
Makes you...
Damn it! Just stole my joke.
Exceedingly good devices that will gas anyone.
Exactly. Yeah, they had to drop that catchphrase though.
Let's stop that. Yes. Herr Kipling.
Next up, a man who loves a cherry bakewell, we're told, is Dan Hollingsworth, who says, it was my first Target book with the continuity-confusing Joe Grant intro. And it's basically a fine Pertwee tale where nothing too appalling springs to mind, so not guilty.
Yep.
I feel that's just essentially like, it's all right, it's middle of the road, not guilty, spice scrape. But never mind.
I love it when we get broadly positive comments on the viewer evidence and Cameron has to try his best to trash them. But
yeah.
But at least defensively possible.
I do look at the user picks and I am judging you. That's all I'm saying. Marks out of 10 internally.
Well, one man you can never judge unless he's taking part in a velvet voice competition is Gareth Bowley, who says, I'm clawing at my memory. I just can't think of anything memorable about this one. The Master has space studs. Could be a good thing. Maybe. Ah, well, who am I kidding? Guilty.
What? After that little sizzle reel at the start, you can't think of anything good about it. Come on, Gareth. Try.
All sizzle, no steak.
No.
So you say it's got a lot of sizzle though, Cam?
It's pathetic. Little tiny. But barely a sizz.
There you go. Next up tonight is a man with no sizzle in his stick. It's some bloke called Cameron Phillips. Says pish.
So
Get that guy blocked.
Evidence.
Every episode he's popping up. Get that guy blocked.
Strangely, always backing your point of view.
I know, it's weird. It's like we're brothers or something.
I'm not a suspicious man. I'm assuming there's a different Cameron entirely. So
absolutely.
Grand. Okay, I won't have skullduggery in my courtroom, as you well know.
Excuse me? You won't have skullduggery in the courtroom?
StreamYard, mate, not me.
Bullshit, mate.
Next up is a man who's never indulged in skullduggery in his life. It's Daniel Ronsley. He says, not guilty, just because it's the first story this season where the Doctor properly goes off-world. Makes a nice change from your usual unit HQs, factories, circuses, power stations, airfields, radio telescopes, country lanes, and bloody Bessie. It's all in the title. Colony in space.
Yep.
I think we'll get further into Daniel's point later on. I will. Yes.
There's your cliffhanger.
I'm writing that one down.
Daniel, your name is going on the list.
Your name should go. Well, yeah.
Don't tell him.
I was gonna say you just made the list, but then I know I'm on the wrong of one of my two podcasts for that to be a thing. So never mind.
One man who's never been on the list, many dodgy ones as far as we know, it's Dave Rennie. He says this, I covered this one on Kettle and it was 4 hours long. Longer than an hour. This one, which suggests there's a lot of deep stuff in this, or I just slavoured pish for far too long. Typical Hulk stuff, good characters and makes you think. Yes, it needed a few weeds in the quarry to make it more visually interesting, but not guilty.
Yep.
Dave.
He's not wrong.
But well, he is. But we'll get into that.
That's becoming a new catchphrase. It's wrong, but we'll get into this.
Yeah.
You see, when I'm on my own, I have to kind of do these things. I've kind of set up these things for, it's almost like I'm setting stuff up for shit I haven't thought of. But then we'll come back to it later.
Right then, next up in viewer evidence, it's one of our guests from the last episode. It's a one and only Paul Quinn, who says a group of middle-class proto-environmentalists retreat from the urban hellscape created by uncaring, rapacious hypercapitalism and flee to a harsh natural environment, seemingly untouched by civilization, where they can restart society based on some type of guild-like commune. But dangers lurk in this faux New Eden, and bastard murderous figures from industry look on this virgin territory with greedy eyes. Hulk essentially preempts Survivors, The Good Life, and the fall and rise of Reginald Perrin by half a decade, and late-stage capitalism by 30 years. In keeping with so much perky, it's very middle class, with only Caldwell probably being working class, and he's put into the position of working for big business against his own economic and social interests. Of course, Tom and Barbara in space, Ash and Gil Platt, would have been shocked by any decent Marxist revolutionaries for being too bourgeoisie. But as is politically aware text of some incredible but bleak world building, even bleaker novelisation, good performances, and Maurice Perry's amazing hair, wig, small animal, William Hartnell's reused mullet, is great. Sink your teeth into that, boys.
Well, I thought there was more coming there. I thought there was more. It's great, and it said 4 at the end, and I was like, "Oh, is there more of that?" No, obviously not.
No, I think that's all fair points.
I had a lot of high hopes for you, Paul, after you were on the show last time round. Dashed, mate.
Not anymore,
dashed.
apparently.
4 out of 10. 4 out of 10. Sorry, I'm supposed to keep that one secret.
One man is higher on a 4 out of 10 is David Gillespie Pratt, who says, not guilty. Some bits feel a bit off in episode 1, not helped by the smeary NTSC copies we've had for years. The TARDIS is tatty and the materialisation effect is wrong. Fake beards and wigs galore. But as this is a Hulk story, it has something to say and a great case. Plus a rocket reused from Joe 90.
Yep.
Recycle where you can, kids.
Oh, yeah. It's all environmentally aware.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
Yep. More good stuff coming up. It's from Kieran Pell. Kieran Pell and his dog say guilty. Watched this for the first time not too long ago, and aside from the master showing up, which is always appreciated, all I can remember are shit aliens, muddy quarries, something about mining, and it being 6 episodes long. Pure filler with a dash of Hulk political commentary.
10 out of fucking 10.
For your views and your duck.
Yep, definitely.
Hey!
How's the duck? Whee!
Guilty or not guilty? What do you think?
She said not guilty.
Right.
Just quite loud and barky.
Yeah.
One man who never barks up the wrong tree is James HBE, who says, even though the Master is a moron, the colonists stupid beyond belief, the Time Lord's a chaotic mess, and the IMC is shambles, I still find this a seriously charming watch. Not guilty.
2 out of 10.
Yep.
These grades are sinking lower and lower as we go on.
Yeah.
Been a minus figure soon at this rate with you.
Yep.
Next up, former guest on the Police Box Live is Hannah Cooper, who says it commits the greatest crime by being dull. It's not the dullest, but it's still been hard work over 4, let alone 6 torturous episodes. There's so little interesting action, and getting out the studio more might have helped add more excitement, but even good casting can't save it.
I mean, John Pertwee does Venusian Aikido with a stick against old Greg from the Mighty Boosh. I don't know what more excitement Hannah Cooper wants, but, you know.
You've got a point. We just end the trial now. Not guilty.
Yep. All great. Hannah's fantastic. 11 out of 10 in the Tokyo Dome. Definitely. Sorry, wrong podcast.
Again, wrong podcast. Wrestling podcasts are available on request.
On request.
Next up is a man who, every time he signs viewer evidence in, I have to stop myself from calling him Paul Lambert. He's Pete Lambert, who, to the best of my knowledge, has never played for Celtic, Borussia Dortmund, or Scotland. Pete says the Doctor.
Has he played for Motherwell, though?
He might have done, yeah. I mean, they'll play anybody. The Doctor gets to have an adventure in space, but we've forgotten what really makes those tick. Most of the ingredients are there, as things to say, but it's baked using a half-remembered recipe. Bottom-free Pertwee. So if any of us are guilty, this has to be among them.
Yes.
So what Pete Lambert is saying there is that none of the Pertwee stories are guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting that impression, yeah.
We'll be concentrating on this one. This is the one.
We're talking about colony space tonight.
All right. Yep. Can't get any more.
Okay. Who's this pulling up in the butt line and slamming on the handbrake to give us his views? It's former guest Rod Brown, who says, after his first joint effort, Malcolm Hulk proves himself incapable of writing a poor Doctor Who adventure. While visually Xarius lacks distinction, this story of colonists versus a corrupt mining corporation and a hidden doomsday weapon sought by the Master has much to offer. In particular, we get to see Pertwee and Delgado sparring away from Earth, which gives this tale something unique amongst the otherwise parochial settings of Season 8. Maurice Perry gives us a second worthy villain, and there's excellent support from John Ringham and Bernard Kay. Far richer, more detailed, and with greater nuance than fan opinion believes, this one is absolutely not guilty.
I mean, it's not often I agree with Rod, but, I suppose even a stop clock can be right twice a day. But, yeah, correct there. Though I would like to point out that this is Malcolm Hulk's 4th story so far.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
3
You've
out of
been
10.
picked apart, Rod. Get back on the bus. He's a fine bus driver. Man safety
I'm sure
record,
he is.
second to none.
Sure, he's a good bus driver as the master is, because he gets his bus.
Well,
Last time we saw him, he was away on a bus.
And you complained about the master on a bus at the time, but now you seem quite happy with it. Make your mind up, Cameron. You can't just change your mind later.
I did, how did the bus get to this planet? Did he drive all the way there?
The bus, that's a TARDIS.
Yeah.
It's not thought that through.
No.
Buses, man.
Okay, the wheels in the bus go, Joe the Wallen, our friend from across the pond, who says, this has the claw thing, right? One of the colonists pilots the ship even though he knows it will blow up. One of the mining crew, the engineer, ends up helping the colonists. That's about what I remember. And the master slides in towards the end. Not like that. Not guilty, but not memorable.
Not guilty. Thank you, Joe.
I mean,
come on.
It's not guilty, but I'd say there's a lot to remember in this one,
Yeah.
We'll get there, but, very
it's
memorable.
It's a complex story.
It is.
Next up is a man who's complex in so many ways, but in all the good ways. Luke Sims Jenkins, who says, guilty, the Doctor finally gets to go travel somewhere and it's dull as fuck.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you. 10 out of 10. What a man.
Not complex, straight to the point.
Yep, not complex, straight to the point. Stick it in the knife, on you go. Brilliant.
Bosh, done.
Yeah,
Man's a
again,
genius.
Luke usually talks a lot of sense, but he's just missed the point on this one.
I mean, looking at those sunglasses, that's a dude right there. What a man.
Another dude of the highest order is Mr. Mark Harrison, who says, it might be getting away with something because it's so unmemorable to me. I was halfway through typing a comment about the mutants before I realised I'd mixed them up. I do like the Doctor Master Bants towards the end of this, even if the rest of it isn't exactly a Hulk smash. That's what he did there.
Nice.
Someone had to get it in.
You see, he gets points for the Hulk smash, but he loses points for using the word bants. So,
He's down with the kids. He's got his head.
Dave, he's younger than us. He has to use it.
Everyone's younger than us. It's fine.
Good. Coming up to the end of viewer evidence, let's have a bit of viewer evidence from each of our guests that are going to be on next week's episode of the Police Box. Let's start off with Lucy McCall, who says, not guilty. Good cast doing good work with their roles, especially Bernard Kay. The Master's TARDIS rocket with filing cabinets and torture enclosures is a delight, and corporate greed is ever present. Side note, I didn't notice that John Pertwee had a lisp until I started listening to podcasts.
He certainly does.
Absolutely.
Now, we mentioned the demons on Blue Sky the other day, and then Lucy joined in, and I kind of went, shite, and we'll see that in a couple of weeks. And I don't know if she clicked on that I'm obviously involved with the Police Box, and I don't know if she just thought I was some random fella essentially just shouting her down on the internet. So, Lucy, if you did know who I was, Vance with a Z, if you didn't, and I came across as a twat, I am sorry. There you go.
I think she did know who you were, but because you've just used Bants with a Z,
yeah,
things worse.
Yeah, you have definitely now come across like a twat.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's like such a double-edged sword. How have I done that?
That was the other Cameron, the viewer evidence Cameron.
The viewer evidence one, yeah.
Definitely.
Wow, that Bant's sword of Damocles hanging over us.
One man who would never use Bants with a Z for certain is Mr. Cyhart, who'll be joining us next week as well. He says, not guilty. I think most people have hated because of the dreary washed out print we used to have. This is a thoughtful, interesting, but slightly too long adventure, but what Pertwee six-parter isn't. Maurice Perry might have had monstrous fare, but his performance is superb. An unsung villain.
Yep.
Now, I've not heard of this guy before, but he is talking a lot of sense there.
He is, yeah. I mean, for a guy who's new to the podcasting game, he's bang on, isn't he?
Yeah, he's doing. Yeah, he's. We all have our misguided first steps.
I mean,
and here we are.
This is the reason I invited him on next week, because I like to give new people the chance. So, hopefully, you'll not be feeling
Is he with me or is he with Dave next week?
He will be with yourself.
Now that presents a dilemma. 10 out of 10, maybe next week. For now.
Terrible.
But at least you're not on the same side as Lucy that you've already creeped out with those DMs. So it's fine.
Maybe, who knows? It wasn't DMs!
Honest, my lads.
I'm not sliding her DMs. None of that.
What, giving her a wee bit of bants on the side, were you?
Dear God.
Before this goes any further, let's get to the final bit of your evidence, which the last word really has to go to Paul Quinn again. Paul says, as Marx, Tolkien, St. Francis and Gramsci all say, fuck IMC.
Yep.
Wow.
And
Power
so
to the
say all of
people.
us.
Indeed. Indeed.
So there you go. There's a view of evidence. Just ignore next door's nutty corgi that you can probably hear barking over me. Just ignore that.
That is one loud corgi.
Yes. It's like that size.
I can wind my dog up again to drown her out if you want.
Let's have a bark off.
Don't suggest it.
That's not a good idea.
She just sat up and looked at us.
Before we send any more barking that would put crusts to shame, there's time to just say two quick things. You can get in touch with us and give us your thoughts on Colony in Space tonight. All you have to do is send us some messages in our live chat box on YouTube and we'll put them up on screen. If it's not working for you, send it on Blue Sky. We can share it on screen as well. And last but not least, most importantly, voting is now open. So based on the arguments put forward by Dave, Cameron and Fraser tonight, you get to decide whether Colony in Space is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. To cast your vote, go to tinyurl.com/PulisBoxColony, or you can do this, if I can scroll up to the top of the list. If you look above Dave's head, you can scan the QR code, the future, and it'll take you straight to the poll. Cast your vote. We will reveal the results at the end of tonight's show. So then, that's half an hour in. We've waffled on enough. Let's get the trial underway. As usual, guests go first on the Polis Box Live. So Fraser, let's have your first point in the defence of Colony in Space, please.
Well. Where should we start? I think we will start with the Double Jeopardy Act of 2011, specifically the Scottish one. Because, gentlemen, this is not the first time Colony in Space has been before this court, is it not?
Yep.
My research has shown me that on the 1st of August 2020, Colony in Space, under the title 40-Foot Attack of the Gale Platte, or something along those lines, was already tried by the Polis Box. And how was it found?
Well, I think since you've brought this up, we can probably guess which way it went, but why don't you remind us?
It was found not guilty.
I'm shocked.
Now, double jeopardy laws apply, which state that it can't be tried again for the same crime, unless one of three particular points applies. First, there must have been a credible admission of guilt, which I have not seen coming from Colony in Space at all. Second, there must be some sense of impropriety or illegality within the initial verdict, in which case one of you guys needs to pretty much accuse the other of perjury or bribery or just general skullduggery in the coming to that verdict.
Nope, no accusations from me.
The third point would be...
All I'll say is, after 3 hours and a quarter, 3 hours and 3/4 or something like that, wasn't it, that episode?
It was good.
We were all essentially, I think we were all essentially blitzed out of our fucking minds. So any decision made in the court that day was purely for really just done to make sure that we were all just like going to actually get home on time.
Yeah. For people who don't know, when we originally done Colony in Space back in the audio podcast version of the Polis Box, that was the episode that broke the format.
Yep.
Yeah.
And led us down the path that leads us to here today. So.
Yes. We originally did like every single story beat and went through the episodes as kind of like genuine sort of like talking along and what happened from start to finish, part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when we got to Colony in Space, it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
At the risk of going all, Baron Zemo in Captain America Civil War, I believe we open on a field of stars.
Yes, we did. We did.
Yes.
Many times.
Yep.
Many times.
Man's done his research.
So the third point would be then that there has to be some new evidence available to the prosecution that was not available at the time of the original trial and would not have been found if due diligence had been done at the time of the initial trial, and would substantially, credibly, potentially alter the outcome. So, over to you, Cam. What is your special
Frazer,
evidence?
are you aiming to get this done early tonight? You on a promise or something, or what? I mean,
the defence rests.
Right. Wow, Christ alive. Good God. I can't even remember who's defending and who's prosecuting for that episode.
I think we've bleached it from our brains, haven't we?
I was going to say, a lot of that was bleached from our brains.
It was the way around we have it this evening. Dave was defending, Cam, you were prosecuting.
There we go. So we're back again.
Successfully defending back then.
Successfully defending back then, yes.
Yes, exactly. What version of this is on the iPlayer? Because everyone's talking about the sort of muddy NTSC thing that we've got.
I watched it on the Blu-ray.
I watched the iPlayer version.
Yeah.
So is that the muddiest fuck version? I've got the iPlayer, so I don't know. I've not got the Blu-ray.
I suspect it's probably a slightly poshed up DVD version. So maybe not quite as muddy as the original print. But...
Yeah, I think we can probably suggest that since 2020, we've had Doctor Who on iPlayer. And this has probably brought it to an audience that maybe wouldn't have been checking out Colony in Space. Because let's not forget, Russell T Davies expects us all to go back and watch all the old episodes now anyway, including stuff like fucking Arc of Infinity. So I think this is what would bring it up to a brand new audience, and therefore it needs to be proven again that this is a terrible thing and is responsible only for, I say, breaking the Polis Boxes format in the first place. So we're actually running a great risk doing this tonight, because I'm hoping it doesn't break this format, because I kind of enjoy this format, you know?
Well, if there's one thing I like doing on other people's podcasts, it is breaking the format.
That's true.
Yes.
It really does.
But no, we will accept the idea that we now have to prove to the kids, basically, that Colony in Space is not guilty. So I did make quite comprehensive list of notes on this one. What did I write? First of all, Malcolm Hulke wrote it.
The defence rests, my lads.
Would you like more than that?
Questions. I mean, don't do a Richie. Don't burn through all of them if you don't want to. But, you know,
no, I was going to say,
selected highlights if you want.
So, I mean, we can go into a bit of depth here, because Mark Hulke goes into a bit of depth, doesn't he? This is exactly what you expect when you get Mark Hulke in to write a story for you. He is the master plotter. You know, looking back what he's done so far, I mentioned this is his fourth story. The ones that he's done before now is the War Games, which is 10 parts written with Terence Dicks. He's done Doctor Who and the Silurians, 7 parts on his Todd. He's then come in and done the Ambassadors of Death, another 7-part story. So really, this is his shortest one. You know, he's up against it. He's got to squish everything into just the 6 episodes in this one. But he knows how to balance a story to spin it out, basically. He has got 2 stories running side by side in this one. This is a technique that he will use again in Invasion of the Dinosaurs, where he has the Operation Golden Age and he has the spaceship stuff. He has 2 stories which on their own would not manage to get up to a 4-parter, but you put them together and you manage to overlay them, you can actually get 6 episodes out of them. So we have got the Doomsday Weapon element, which is the sort of walnut-headed old Greg aliens and their underground lair with the little man out the cupboard. You've got that element of it, and you've got the Master robbing from the Time Lords to go and try and rob the Doomsday Weapon and hold the universe to ransom through that. But then you've got the much more interesting one, which is the social commentary on colonialism, which takes place between the miners and the colonies. So you have the colonists arriving first of all, and then you have the miners basically coming in and trying to basically just steal their land, which is exactly what the colonists have done to the primitives. They've come in without a care in the world. There's a really interesting line in the first episode where it's like, well, yeah, I did a big scan of this planet and there was no life on it whatsoever, apart from that green fella over there.
Yeah.
And his mates, the Wallen heads. Which, this is what you get with Hulk. You get nuance. Rod said it before. You get nuance. Hulk, you ask Doctor Who fans, tell me one interesting thing about Malcolm Hulk, and they will all tell you he was a communist. And if you ask for the second one, it'll be that he had his own file in MI5 as a result of that. So we know which way his pendulum swings, as it were. It swings to the left. So you would automatically assume he's going to be super sympathetic to the colonists, and he is going to come down on the miners like a ton of bricks, which he does to a certain extent. But the miners are very much played as the bad guys, but you also have the colonists. There are sort of shades in there, so they are, like I say, coming in and taking over someone else's world, planet. Then you've got them up against the miners, but everyone's got shades of black and white in them. You've got is it Caldwell, the nice miner, and who's the blonde colonist with the tash that does all the fighting at the end? I'm terrible with names.
Can't remember his name.
But yes, we know the one you mean.
Anyway,
The second in command.
Familiar with his
Yes.
work, yes.
Yes, you've got him kind of like fighting against Ash, the chief communist pacifist. So Hulk puts all of this together in a way that I always think if Matt Hulk had written this today, he would get accused of being a Tory bastard on Twitter.
Well, it probably would anyway, just because it's Twitter and it's stuff. Else like
you can just see, everyone watching this nowadays and going, well, this is shit. Hulk's obviously a Tory bastard because he does not destroy the mining corporation at the end. The end of the story is left with, the real adjudicator are going to come in and then they're going to settle it out. So, the mining company isn't destroyed. The colonists haven't quite won. They've won, but they haven't quite won. It's still a little bit undecided. So on that basis, I can see the modern audience just going, well, he's a Tory bastard, obviously, isn't it? Because, Kablam, that's what happens in there. Lucky Day, that's what happens in there. Interstellar Song Contest, Doctor Who has always been political. The problem is it's just never always agreed with your politics, people. And that's where it falls down, is because people kind of think, well, Doctor Who should be doing exactly my type of politics. So even when you've got probably the hardest leaning left-wing writer, you get a story like this where there is nuance, there is subtlety, there is proper characterization, and there's a proper message underneath it, which is colonialism, kids, isn't all it's cracked up to be. So yeah, you can cheer on these colonists all you want, but they aren't necessarily the good guys because they are misplanting these old Greg people from their world, and there's a bit of shit going on underground, which then leads into the stuff. The Master pops up halfway through because we do need a bit of fun. It's not dull, whatever else people are saying, because lo and behold, the Master pops up halfway through just to spice things up again with his Cherry Bakewell, with his big gas, with his back to front TARDIS, which is a rocket, which has got a Yale lock, which is fantastic. So Mark Hulk is just the master of doing this, and I think he has written such eloquent commentary on so many different things, which he also manages to put a lot of fun and a lot of action into. So, Mark Hulk is the first point.
I think what I'd say to add on to that is he's not just got two stories going at the same time. He changes the levels of which story is important. Because for the first couple of episodes, it's all about the miners against the colonists.
Yep.
Then the Masters appears, and that starts to take on more precedence. And the miners against the colonists gets pushed to the side. So there's never a point where both stories are just like swapping back and forth, and they'll come together at the end. They'll come together at the end, but it changes which one's most important to the viewer, and then they come together, which is really nicely done. And that's why it had to be a 6-part to an extent.
And it's the way that he just introduces everything. So you start off, it's very much focused on the colonists in the first episode. In the second episode, that's when you start getting the miners involved, and you get, the sense that, actually these really are the bad guys now. And then the third episode, that's when they start fighting each other, and that's when the primitives, the aliens, start coming in a bit more. It's that whole plotting genius of Hulk that you see it in the war games as well. You just see that drip of everything coming in when he's working with Dix. But he just shows here that he can do it just as well by himself.
Okay. Now I get a feeling Cam's going to rebut this with the phrase "as a writer." I'm just saying the way Fraser's point was going. I wouldn't be surprised if those words came into my.
Lee is in one of his moods tonight, isn't he?
I'm just guessing what he's going to say.
I wasn't going to say anything about me. I was
okay. All right.
What tosser would sit there and go, as a writer?
Having written myself.
I'm very interested in the story of Doctor Who. No. Okay. There's a lot to unpack from that. I mean, your expectation is that I'm going to be sat here kind of going, Malcolm Hulk was shite, wasn't he? But no. I mean, you touched on this is the shortest Hulk story so far, isn't it? Because all the previous ones have been 7 parts, War Games is 10 parts. But then I would point to the fact that even in the viewer evidence, we had a few murmurings of this didn't need to be a 6-parter. And it really doesn't. It's very... Even at that 6 parts, it feels drawn out. And by the time we get to sort of the third time that power has shifted between the IMC and the colonists, and another shootout happens in the dome, it feels like this is getting padded out to an extreme degree. Somewhere in here is a very snappy 4-parter that probably covers the struggles of colonization of an alien world far better than something like fucking Avatar does. But it ain't that. Although it's little blue people instead of little green people. I just genuinely would go along with a lot of what the viewer evidence said, and it was my belief as well, is that this is stretched as a story. And in combination with other factors we'll get into later, it makes it quite dull. Surprisingly, a lot of people in the viewer evidence were saying that this wasn't memorable. And I think it was Mark Harrison that said, this, I was writing notes for the mutants before realizing he had the wrong story.
Yeah.
And I nearly fell in that trap as well, because when we first did Colony in Space, we're doing Colony in Space. I was like, oh yeah, it's the Swedish guy in the cave, the radioactive, the radiation. No, it's not. It's the lesser of those stories as a result of that.
But that just shows you that the Bristol boys just stole from this, basically,
and improved on it.
Did they though?
Yeah, I'd say so.
No,
I'd be watching Mutants over this any day of the week.
They paint their story with a lot broader strokes. They are kind of like in your face, like it's colonialism. Whereas, like I say, Hulk is a lot more nuanced. He's a lot more subtle with what he's doing. I think that makes it a little bit better.
Nuanced by having a group of people called colonists and a mining corporation which is led by a sneering man in a mullet.
Yeah, and the fight off against each other, and there's good people on both sides, and there's bad people on both sides, and you're making it sound like it was some kind of genius masterstroke to have people in shades of grey, but it all really just boils down to one character on each side. There's only 3 characters on each side, though.
Yeah, but in the group of people, it's like
there's only 3 of each.
Yeah, but you've
got the captain. You've got Captain Hairpiece. you've got you've got Murder Guy, and you've got Bernard
Guy.
K. Bernard K. and he's Bernard K. staff.
Yeah, but you've really got Caldwell for the minor corporation, who doesn't really have any kind of like thing that changes him throughout this story. It's just generally he's marked out a little bit of being the guy. It's like, oh, we don't need to do all that, do we? And then you've also got the flip side of him. He essentially the sort of reverse version of him. Is it Norton, the guy they find? Is that Norton? I love how we're struggling with names. You're saying there's only 3 characters, but we're all struggling with names.
The Among Us guy.
Either we're getting really old, or these characters are not memorable in any way.
The problem is they've all got very normal names. I know there's a Dale Winton in there, and there's a Graham Norton, there's Gail Platt.
Winton's your blonde guy that's always going for the guns. Is it not? Yeah, that's who you struggled with before.
Yeah. So
the supermarket trolley, yeah.
But ultimately,
exactly. Yeah.
What you need to do is you need to look at Caldwell and see what his motivations for doing what he does. So he is the guy who's morally objects to everything that the miners are doing. He knows fine well that going out and murdering people and pretending it's lizards and everything is wrong, but he's quite happy to do that because he needs to get paid at the end of the day. He's got a mortgage. He's the guy sitting, he's the blue collar guy sitting there going, well, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this, but ultimately if I don't, I'll lose my house or me cube, whatever it is back on Earth, me little sort of like hen cage thing. I've got a family to feed. I need to get paid at the end of this, so I can't be too rocking the boat too much. And then the flip side, you've got Dale Winton with who's the real hot-headed communist guy who's like, well, we're going to take what we want by force, versus Ash, who's very much sort of the hippie of the group.
We can move away from Winton at the minute. I'm talking about the guy that they find, who's like, the guy who pretends to be from the other. The guy who's like, going, that food looks nice, blah 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 blah. Hello. Him,
that man's dead.
Moving into the third quadrant now. It's essentially just I've set up these 2 sides, but I'm gonna like put one person on each and just flip them round. Because essentially that's it.
There's not that many other ones. That's the point,
Yeah, but it's not. It's not this genius master stroke you're pointing out to be. It's pretty base.
But but the point is, it's not in the mutants. It's not there in the mutants. The mutants is very much like all these guys are bad and all these guys are good, and that guy's Swedish.
Hey, Cotton's a dude. Apart from the fact he's a black guy called Cotton. But anyway, we're not talking about mutants in that sense of depth at the minute. So
just in what Fraser was saying, Joe Llewellyn does back him up. He says, I always like Malcolm Hulke's writing as he goes for the difficult nuance versus the easy simplicity. He recognises the issues with his side instead of taking cheap shots at the other side.
Yeah.
Or in many ways, he takes cheap shots at both sides equally because they've both got faults.
He's happy to take the shot at his side. He's happy to say, well, actually, this is my side, but we aren't perfect either. And that's all the more evident in, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, where, the good guys the bad guys are essentially the left-wing reactionaries. It's the Just Stop Oil people. He is, preempting that by 40 odd years and saying, yeah, these guys are arseholes. But they're my arseholes. They're on my side. But we, you don't get that level of nuance with anyone else. That writes for Doctor Who, I don't feel.
Yeah, I mean, see, I've written a bit about the character of Caldwell because I think he's a great nuanced character. The way I was seeing this is you could almost do a standalone story of just him. I mean, nowadays it'd be like starring Ryan Reynolds as him, but he's a young guy growing up on Earth, which we know is a shithole, and he just has to get out.
Yep.
Finds he's good at science and technology, gets a job with a mining corporation, knows that if he finds that big planet, he'll get a payday, he can retire, get his old mum that operation, happy days. And he makes that decision, and slowly he keeps making more and more difficult choices. And it's kind of the right decision at the time, but all of a sudden he's 15 years down the line, still waiting for that big prize pot. And now he's kind of having to help cover up people getting murdered. And he doesn't know what to do. We've got this whole backstory of his character. We can kind of see it all there. He's not just going along with it because it's money. He's going along with it because he's taken the steps that have led him up to here. And even though he goes along with it to an extent, we see that he starts to fight back. He's not willing to just let them put it under the rug and hide it. And that's when we get to the point that he saves someone because it's the right thing to do. So he throws away his career and everything he's worked all these years for just to save someone because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
And
it becomes a... Sorry, Faith.
No, I was going to say, I think it's even him that says the line earlier on in the story, I'm not one of them, I'm a miner. Where, he's wearing the same uniform as the security guys that are doing the bad shit, but he's just a miner. He's just in the rocks. He's trying to make a living. And that's why he decides to change sides. Because he doesn't want to be part of the big evil empire, but he kind of grew into it. So the nuance of that character is massive and really well done. Because we understand every decision he makes. Even when he's almost helping to cover up murder, we understand why he's doing it.
Yep.
And then when he changes sides, we really understand that as well. And at the end, when he's like, I've thrown away my career, I'm not going home. Can you find me a job? They're like, yeah, you can be with us now. It's not like he's a welcomed hero because he's changed sides and he's one of us now. It's just, yeah, right, the shovels are over there. Help. And that's it. And it's really subtly written.
We need a miner. Our engineer's dead, so yeah, we'll have you.
It kind of becomes like a commune hippie, like the priest in that episode of Father Ted, only less having a rock shoved up his arse. So that's okay. How much of that is a performance, and how much of that is writing, though?
Well, I'd say a lot of it's in the writing because that's who decides the story. I mean, it's really well performed. You're right, Cameron. It is. It's well acted. You believe everything.
It's well performed. I'm just saying how much of that. What's the split?
No idea because I wasn't there when they made it. But judging by the time constraints they were under, I'm guessing they couldn't do that much ad-libbing. So a lot of it's down to the story writing.
Yep. And he's Bernard Kay's, delivering those lines. It's the story of Caldwell. I'd say it's more in the writing than in the performance.
And even when you look at his opposite number on the other side, the gung-ho colonist with a moustache, you can kind of understand that he also grew up on a shitty planet Earth, wanted to get out, but he went the other way, where he's rebelling and fighting against the system, and that's why he's so angry. So you understand all of his decisions as well.
When you see him, he's, that's his planet now. Never mind the alien people that actually are. That is actually their planet. But he's like, well, this is mine now, and these people are coming in to take it away. And they are bullies. They are literally just sweeping in, laying claim to this, that, and the other, and, dispossessing him of his land. So he is right up in arms about it, literally.
Yeah.
Who's the fella? No, sorry, carry on, Lee. No,
No.
I had a half. No, carry on. I had a half thought. And as soon as it left my mouth, I was like, nah.
Okay. Yeah, the abort button and that. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I can't do the abort button. Because I kind of look going,
Oh, okay. Dave, but we're counting that as one of your points for the defence then, because that was quite a big one.
We can do, but we don't have to.
Okay, I'm just asking, just if you're happy to come back round. Okay.
We can just keep going round and I'll have more later.
Okay, that's fine. We'll do that then. Before we move on to the next point, let's have a look at some of the comments that have been coming in. We're slightly out of sequence here, all timey-wimey and that. Daniel Ronsley has said, can we send Ryan Reynolds to a colony in space? I wouldn't mind.
He has to have the Tash. I'd like to see Ryan Reynolds with Bernard Kay's Tash.
Yeah.
Wow.
Who else has been in touch? New podcaster, Cy Hart says, evening all.
Oh, well, I hope Cy Hart's taking notes and learning how to do this podcasting thing.
Yeah, and if you've got any questions about this Doctor Who thing, Cy, just hit us in the comments. We'll see it.
Right? I know. I can appreciate you've maybe got into it with the Russell T Davies 2.0 era. You'll be well excited about, having some space racists that go completely unpunished.
Also in touch is from the last episode, Paul Quinn, who says, minors are minors, very BBC in the 1970s.
Don't worry, Jim will fix it.
Why do I
Your
keep
letter was
thinking
only the
that
start.
Paul Quinn's mind dump is like a big massive skip on wheels? Just like, out the back somewhere.
Do you know what that mind up is full to the brim because he's still going. Lisa's bent as that judge in Jeremy Thorpe's trial. Next thing you'll be accusing Fraser of being a player of the pink oboe. Other instruments are available.
I can't get the Billy Connolly description out of my head now. Never mind.
He's still going. A legal settlement in space doesn't have the same ring to it. Cam's a Bantersaurus.
Yeah, I'll take that.
And also, what has he been saying? Has Captain Dent got a mental illness? So, another discussion to have later on the Tonight Show. One more comment has come in, and who can possibly say that Doctor Who fans are weak, pathetic individuals when Joe Llewellyn has been doing some work at his wife's grandparents' property out in the country? Current score: Joe 1, big ass scary rattlesnake 0.
Fucking,
Go on, Joe.
how have you? Right, hold on. I need to ask a question. Sorry to break away from this. Right, is the rattlesnake now dead, or have you just removed the rattlesnake and put it somewhere else? On a subject of green people being removed something to somewhere else. Need to know, Joe.
The man's worked in the military. He knows how to handle a threatening situation. So
I don't think he's fought the rattlesnake with a stick, went underground to find the next level up of rattlesnake, to be tucked into the next bit of lair, to find the next level up of rattlesnake who we can communicate, properly with, and set off the construct to blow up the rest of the rattlesnakes.
All those who come into our city will be poisoned.
John Pertwee playing the rattlesnake, was he?
Yeah, yes.
Poisoned.
Poisoned. Yeah, exactly.
Can't you see there? There we go.
Then you'll have the animation that is in Disney's Robin Hood, where a snake folds its arms, and then it'll be 150 quid for Ian Levine to AI generate that.
Joe, if you're still with us, let us know the fate of the rattlesnake. We're on tenterhooks near, man.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Before we find out that answer, Cam, do you want to give us your point, first point for prosecution of Colony of Space?
1 hour in and I'm away. Right, here we go. Okay. Where I was going to be, I was going to go for my point 1 as my first point, but seeing as the way the conversation is going and we're talking about Hulk as a writer, let's go with this one. On the subject of green people, desperately uncomfortable watching that now. I mean, that is very, very British colonialism. Look at the primitives with their spears and their loincloths and their strange ways. That is just, and I know we could have go. We often say on the post, but as well what it was at the time, but and that's often said. It's always like Talons of Weng Chiang that gets this kind of like abuse for being like a portrayal of a different culture. Holy fuck, this was like shit, and it's not as if they actually do anything until the last couple of episodes. It's like kind of going. It's like here's a guy in weird spear chucking guy, and then this is it, and then they're forgotten about, and then they just come back for the last 2 episodes. So yes, that'll be my point. This really, really bordering on quite racist depiction of other cultures that is prevalent in this story, and then to mark it all off, you've got a guy whose face looks like a ball sack.
2 guys.
I mean, come on. Yeah, they all look like ball sacks. It's just no, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Could be termed deeply offensive.
But I think
we've moved on.
I think that's the point. The point is that they have the primitives who are basically the Native Americans of the story. So I think
Native Americans, Africans, Amazonians, whatever you want to look at as another culture that doesn't quite understand, doesn't speak our language, doesn't follow our ways. Have some Christianity. Do you have a flag?
So
it's
obviously that is the point. The point is that, you know, we are supposed to be rooting for these colonists because, you know, the big bad bastard miners are coming in and trying to steal their land. We are coming in to steal your planet from you. And it's never their planet to start with. It's always been the green and walnut headed guys' planet. You know, so make
Borsack headed.
Borsack headed, yeah. So the Borsacks and the old Gregs. So, you know, that's the kind of the underlying point, you know, is that actually, for all you want to root for these colonists, they are no better than the miners because they have done exactly that. And I think the really interesting thing about these primitives is that they are only primitives because they have been, you know, de-evolved over the years from what they were. They used to be the big, powerful race, you know, eons ago. They built this big doomsday weapon and never used it, but the radiation from it is just like fuck them and, you know, turned the heads into Borsacks and you know, made them green and everything. So really they are the more advanced and evolved race than either the colonists or the miners. And I think
my problem though is that
one of the underlying underlying things is that's one of the points.
To present in the story another culture, and you resort to stereotypes of Africa and of you know, South America. That's what you kind of resort to and go, you know, it can't be like, you know, another sort of, you know, humanoid looking alien race. It can't be that. It is, you know, it has to be this shortcut taken. You see what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I mean. But I think
it made me uncomfortable watching it.
It's like you say, it's a shorthand. It's a shorthand way of saying, you know, this race,
lazy.
This race is primitive because, you know, you need to kind of set that up to start with. But then it really is subverted as soon as you get underground. As soon as you see the you know, scrotum head, it's, you know, it's turned on its scrotum head. It's like, actually, this is really actually quite a well developed race. They don't communicate verbally; they're telepathic, which is always again, it's a shorthand for you are more advanced than I am because you can communicate with your mind. I see what you mean. I can see where you would look at it and go, you know, this is just, you know, like Talons again, and they're just portraying the primitives as spear chuckers and.
But again, your point would.
Stuff
I would
like
accept
that,
your point more if they got into the city and then suddenly it was like, oh, by the way, we can speak. And we can do all this kind of stuff. We just don't want to do it in front of all the colonists because we like them thinking that we're just freaking brutal. And then what's the punishment when they get into the city? What's the thing they do? Human sacrifice.
Well,
again, it's just like they're kind of going, oh yeah, they are one step away from having Joe and the Doctor in a massive cooking pot with boiling water and a little fire underneath it, like the fucking cartoon, like Bugs Bunny or something.
Like the end of
they're one. It's that far away from that as a depiction.
No, I'd say, and I think, you know, if you made this today, you know, one, yes, Hulk would be called a Tory bastard on Twitter, and two, you wouldn't do that. You know, no. You know, at the same time, you would have better sort of makeup. You'd have better. It wouldn't look quite as scrotumy, shall we say?
Maybe have them like CGI in blue.
I think you would probably you would have better prosthetics. You'd have like proper sort of like Silurian or you know, it wouldn't just look like, you know, like Vogue on Halloween mask with a balloon on the top.
They don't look great.
Yeah. So I think you would do it differently today, certainly. But I think, you know, like I said, I think that is really one of the key points is that this is. Yeah, I can see your point. I really can. But
thank you. At least someone does.
Someone out there.
Someone out there loves me.
Yeah, I think the thing is, you would still try and tell the same story.
Yeah.
Because the fact that they were incredibly advanced and then ruined themselves back to the Stone Age is an integral part of the story. It's how you represent them being back to their Stone Age levels. And obviously, when you get back to that level, you are going to be fighting with sticks and spears and rocks. But it's how you show the people that are fighting that way.
Yep.
So as much as you can say, yes, it's a very racist colonial viewpoint, there's going to be people with spears because that's what they've got left because they've wrecked everything else.
Can I point out, by the way, that now that's my dog? I saw Fraser just look around him going like this. And I'm like, it's my
I have to glance out the window as well. If anybody watching tonight has a dog, they may want to just dial in the call and make it bark. And just join the party. Everybody's dog's at it tonight.
There you go. Aye, sorry.
Yeah. So I think if they were just showing them that this is what the locals had always been like, they're just dumb spear chucking locals, then it would be really racist and colonial. I think the fact that they got too much into technology and sent themselves back to the Stone Age isn't necessarily a colonial thing. It's also a warning about the dangers of technology, especially war technology and nuclear weapons, which is also quite a big part of the story.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to sort of like go into is, for being this expansive race and having this city underground, we only seem to see about 2 rooms of it. And that's the other thing that got me about this whole thing, is the fact, it's a point I'll probably get into more later on, but it's the entire city was a bit of a waste.
You know why that is, though, Cam? Budget.
Go on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, but don't write them if you're going to have the hold on. All right, there we go.
Hey, there she is.
There she is. Just see an ear in the bottom corner of the screen. But anyway, I've lost my train of thought completely. Doug's.
We only see 2 rooms of the city, but yeah, we also only see 3 rooms inside the miner's ship. We only see 2 or 3 rooms inside the colony. So,
but then they're not supposed to be this kind of like expansive civilization, Albeit, you could have a whole city that just wrecked as fuck. I mean, that's fine. But it's always just like, we have these 2 little corridors that are quite dark, and we have 1 room where it seems to be all the human sacrifices take place, with a few scribbly drawings in it, and that's it. Oh no, yeah, a guy that lives in a cupboard.
Yeah,
it seems to be.
But, I mean, we only really see 1 room, well, 2 rooms inside the ship. We see a couple of rooms inside the colonist domes. We see a couple of rooms inside. There's probably haven't got very much more interesting rooms. I mean, do you really want to see the scrotum-headed guy's bedroom?
I'd just like to see.
There's like vote for the episodes.
Yeah, where the fuck are they buying? Where the fuck are they growing food?
They're not.
That's
the point.
I want to see. I want to see.
They're having to get it from the colonists because they haven't got none. So they're having to.
I want to see what their test services. Where's the Sainsbury's?
They don't have one. It's been radiated.
Yeah.
Where's that?
So that infers they were only eating when these colonists turned up, which by the sounds of it wasn't that long ago.
It was 2 years.
What the fuck were they doing before that time? What the fuck were they doing before that time?
Starving.
So no, but probably dying, and they're putting long dead.
Yeah, and that's why they don't see any more rooms, because they're just
gone.
Close them all off.
Fucking gone.
All been made into morals.
Filled with green corpses, dead scrotums everywhere.
Would you like a walnut?
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
It's nice and pickled.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't ask questions.
No, don't ask questions. We won't tell no lies.
Before we move forward into pickled ball sack, should we have a few more comments?
Yes, go on.
Let's do that before we go to the next point. Cy Hart has been in touch to say, you lot are an inspiration to a newbie like me.
I know.
Thank you, Cy.
Best of luck, Cy. Best of luck for this Doctor Who podcast in Malarkey as you start your journey. All the very best to you, mate. I'm sure you'll do well.
We're here to help.
We're here to help you. If you just want to give us a call.
I feel he's got the potential to go far.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, with his granddad Tony, he'll go well.
I mean, it's chief whip at the Tories. That was an outstanding achievement.
Mm.
The man's got talent. The man's got talent.
Oh, absolutely.
As long as he doesn't do something completely batshit, like come on a podcast and try and prosecute the demons, in which case,
oh, that would sink you straight away.
Who fucking would do that?
Oh, what idiot would think of doing a thing like that? Eh?
Moron would be prosecuting the demons in a week's time.
You'd have to question the man's sanity if he was to do that.
I know.
Really, wouldn't you?
I know. I mean, having spent almost an entire year prosecuting Doctor Who, is sanity a thing anymore? Is it really?
Let me just say, we open on a field of stars.
Open a field of stars.
One man who has talent and sanity in abundance is Mr. Joe Ford, who says, what is that man Frazer Gregory banging on about? Colony in space is so dull. I'd rather watch The Dominators with Fraser's commentary than sit through this story again. Also, love you.
In fairness,
as well, Joe.
He says
10 out of
that.
10.
He says that about a lot of stories now. He'd much rather watch The Dominators than a lot of them. Things like Turn Left. He'd rather watch The Dominators now.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of Series 4. Turns it down. Wants to watch The Dominators now.
He also goes on to say, plus that 5 Doctors time scoop is still after Dave. It is still up there. It's still up there waiting.
Still there. Yep.
Along with the ball from Shada here, which is apparently Millie. She didn't know it was sticking into shot. I'll sort that later. Also says, Scrotums, Fraser has learned from the best. Gareth Bowley's been in touch to say Doctor Who and the Scrum Heads, was that in an annual? It wasn't, it should have been.
Yep, 1972.
Yep. Oh, and we have a definitive answer for you from Joe Llewellyn.
Oh.
The rattlesnake is dead as hell.
Wow.
Those things are very aggressive and dangerous. In the game of Cluedo for folk over here, it was Sergeant Joe in the backyard with a shovel. It was a big one, longer than my arm. But what about the snake, Joe?
That is the snake he's talking about.
Jesus Christ.
On that note, shall we go a quick point for the prosecution before we have, the defence before we have our little half-time break? What do you think, Dave? You got anything you want to chuck in?
Yes. I was mentioning viewer evidence earlier, and it's that scene early on with Jo and the Doctor when she's first off the planet. And it's so well acted and so written that she shows vulnerability, she shows fear. You can see that she kind of just wants to go home because she doesn't know what's going on. But the Doctor persuades her to stay and have an adventure. Now, to an extent, this is the first time we've seen the Doctor bringing somebody along on an adventure deliberately. Because a lot of the time it's accidental, she's forced to go with him, it's a unit operation, a unit adventure, and she's there as well, and he tells her to stay behind. You stay here, help with the paperwork, help with the medicine, make a cup of tea, whatever, love. Whereas this one, he's like, but this is the outside. This is time and space travel. We're on a different planet. Come on, let's go have fun. And it's different to anything we've seen in this series. And it's a great bit of character development for Jo. Because normally she's quite gung-ho, she wants to have a go at things, she wants to get involved, but all of a sudden it's so much bigger. And we get character development for both of them individually and for their relationship. And it's both well written, well acted, and just nice. So
Absolutely.
That's a small point for the defence.
There you go.
Absolutely. I would 100% agree with that one. Because she's the get up and go companion, isn't she? She's the one that, is also throwing herself into the danger. But then as soon as shit gets real, I don't know what actually, I thought that was just a cupboard. Actually, it turns out to be big and massive, and it can actually travel through time and space. I thought you were just winding us up, having a laugh. Then, she has that moment of real doubt, and it's not over instantly. She gets outside, and she's finding these beautiful flowers, which are really colourful in amongst all the clay, and she's still like, no, actually, I would really like to go back to the TARDIS now. And it takes a long time for her to get actually going. It's not until she kind of meets the colonists and kind of gets swept up with their battle for survival against the mining bastards that she really, settles and gets into it. And this is very much, the beginning of her, journey going forward into the next two series. But it is just it's padding, probably. It's padding. But the thing I always think about padding is, as long as it's good, you can enjoy it. As long as you enjoy the padding, pad away, go for it.
Go on then, Cam. Trash the lovely working relationship of John Pertwee.
The lovely working relationship, John. I think it's telling that it's perhaps a small diamond in a sea of rough. That's, I would say again, in this 6 parts, it's another 30 seconds or something like that scene takes place in.
No, it's much longer than that.
It's a good few minutes.
Yeah, it's good.
Again, I've kind of blacked it out.
A few minutes in the TARDIS. It's a few minutes
surrounded by this turgid fog all the way around it. It's not. And again, I think if it was that much of a kind of like a breakthrough and a wondrous scene, more people would be mentioning it. I don't think it's like, it's mentioned a couple of times in Viewed Evidence, but it wasn't really a sort of universal thing. You're saying how she's the first. Did you say she's the first companion that should get brought along willingly?
No, for this Doctor in this series, it's the first time that Jo has been brought along by the Doctor deliberately.
Right. Okay. Right.
Takes her out of the TARDIS and says, "Let's go."
Well, yeah, but it's kind of a they go in to sort of see the inside of it, doesn't she? And then suddenly it starts, because that's when the Time Lords start recalling it. So it's not exactly willingly.
No, it's not. That's the whole point I'm making. She is there because her and the Doctor are both there against their will to an extent, because the Time Lords just threw them out there.
Yeah.
And when they realise that they're on a different planet, she wants to just stay in the TARDIS and go home. And he realises they can do more than that. So he has to persuade her to come with him, which he never does before with Jo. And one of the nice little touches is that she is never very far away from him for the next few scenes. Like, she's always within a couple of meters with him, almost like she's scared of getting lost. So she stays with what's comfortable. And as was pointed out, she doesn't really relax till there's other people to be around.
And she's happy to eat gruel with some colonists.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's more of it. Are we extending the Pertwee and Katie Manning relationship to the scene where they are effectively shuffling along a floor?
That's not where I thought that sentence was going.
The nuance, the joie de vivre of shuffling along the floor.
It's a continuation of their developing relationship, yes.
Of shuffling along the floor. Okay, fair enough.
I mean, if you've got a better way of getting underneath that gas trigger alarm laser thing,
I'm just wondering what was in the mindset that was like, we'll just have them sort of like shimmy along here at the height of about a foot.
Well, they were probably thinking we can't have them just walk in, but we don't have money for special effects. So we'll just make them pretend there's lasers there.
You're telling me at no point John Pertwee's nose wouldn't have tripped that laser?
Buffon, maybe, but not his nose.
Yeah.
They were both method actors, though, Cam. They were just taking what they were doing off set by doing a horizontal shuffle and bringing it on set.
Yeah.
They're professionals.
Aye, of course.
It's the horizontal shuffle that got John Barrowman.
John Barrowman shuffling the first bit. Oh, the jokes that will never die. He'll never die.
Tries me might to kill it.
Yeah, but there you go.
Talking about killing things, Joe Llewellyn's been back in touch. I'm a fairly non-violent person, but very ruthless against threats to my family. We know that now.
I don't fucking blame you, Joe. I don't blame you. Wow.
But the man didn't act alone. With an assist from my wife, who threw a cinder block at it.
Wow.
You don't mess with Georgia.
Nope.
Joe wins fatality. Incredible.
The cinder block was the distraction, though. That's
yeah. To be fair, now I had it in my mind that it would be an American thing, and he was going to shoot it. And that's probably very unfair of me.
On the police box.
No, that's what I mean.
So what we were saying, what we were saying before about cultural stereotypes.
Yeah, I know. But it's boom. That's what I was thinking. But I thought it was going to be like that bit in Tremors where the thing breaks through the basement. That But no. If it was a spade that done it, then it was a spade.
It's a spade what done it. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. Wow. How do you dispose of a dead rattlesnake then? Do you just? I'm full of questions tonight for Joe. How do you?
Yeah.
Can you just throw that in your bin in America, or do you have to kind of like have a specialist, someone come around and lift that reptile?
I mean, if so, much colour does it go in? You could do, yeah.
Well, you could, I suppose.
That might make a nice draft excluder.
Apparently, it just tastes like really salty chicken.
Welcome back to the Police Box, the International Pest Control Podcast.
Yes.
Sponsored by Rent-A-Kill.
Yes.
Right, have we got any more to add to that point before we go to our half-time break? Are we done with
well, if I were talking about cracking a snake across the face, then no.
Yeah. Probably a good time to go for a break. Just before we do, I have had another answer to a question that was set earlier, and I'm going to have to screen share for this one because it's from Lucy McCall, who can't use the live chat on YouTube for some reason.
Oh,
so
no, it's going to be, I thought he was a random twat, isn't it? This is what this is going to be.
Yes, I did indeed know who Cameron was. I don't think I've ever knowingly been bantered, #old lady.
Fantastic. That's okay then. I'll settle for that. I did have a paranoid thought that I'd just been like, I've come across as a random dickhead.
No, she
say that for next week.
She never said he didn't come across as a dickhead.
No, well, true. Yeah, I suppose. We'll find out next week.
Yeah, stay tuned, folks.
When she goes, him.
Right then, let's go for a quick halftime break. We'll be back in a few minutes to carry on the trial of Colony in Space. If you've not already done so, go to tinyurl.com/policeboxcolony or scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner as Cam blinds himself with his desk lamp, and it'll take you right to the poll. You can cast your vote there, and we'll reveal the results at the end of tonight's show. We will be back in a few minutes' time for the rest of the trial. See you very shortly. And we're back for the second half of the trial of the Colony in Space on the Police Box Live. One thing I've meant to mention earlier on, it completely skipped my mind, is we were going to be joined by Jim Allenby from What's in the Box podcast tonight. He wasn't able to make it. He was feeling a bit under the weather. So, Jim, if you're watching, hope you're feeling good, mate. You'll be getting better soon. We'll get you back on next series.
Get well soon, Jim.
Definitely get well soon. One thing I've noticed, actually, just having a quick look at the comments before we came back on, some bloke called Problems with Reality. My God, it's actually let me in.
How strange.
No idea who this guy is. He just keeps turning up.
There's that weird guy again.
I'll block him. I'll put him on mute. That's
some fellow who's renamed his YouTube channel because he's got plans.
More on which later.
Yeah.
Okay, before we resume the trial, I had a little look at the vote. It's pretty close so far. It's very close, in fact, looking at it. So your votes will count tonight. So tinyurl.com/policeboxcolony or scan the QR code. I'll take you to the poll, cast your vote, and we'll reveal the results at the end of tonight's show. Let's crack on with the trial then. Let's go back to Frazer. Frazer, let's give another point of defence of Colony of Space, please.
Well, we'll get the receipt back out. Down on the back of this. Yeah. Right. So we've already discussed, haven't we? The Mutants is basically just a rip-off of this. But this is a very far-reaching, influential story, isn't it? Because we know the Mutants is a remake. That's a good one. But there's so many other things which are kind of, you see the roots in here. Obviously, old Greg from the Mighty Bush we've already discussed as well. When I was watching IMC, was it the International Interplanetary Mining Corporation? It's just it's one letter away from JMC, the Jupiter Mining Corporation of Red Dwarf fame.
True.
So you can see it's the feels in there, and then the little really tiny scrotum dude who pops out the cupboard at the end. I mean, I can't be the only one, talking about, things that should be cancelled and a bit culture inappropriate. Can't be the only one thinking of Otis Redding and Marvin Gaye as played by Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer. Just sitting here watching the Time Lords coming in and going out.
And go back out again.
Coming in and going out again. So you've got that as well, but that whole sort of like head in a box thing is wonderfully pinched by Blake 7 in the Series A episode, The Web. They've also got a little dude with a head in a box there. I say pinched, it's not pinched really, because it's the same director. It's Michael E. Bryant who directs The Web, Blake 7, who is making his debut here. So point for the defense is the introduction of Michael E. Bryant. One of Doctor Who's most successful directors, goes on from here to do Sea Devils. He does some other things, and he does Robots of Death as well, and then goes on to do a lot of stuff. He does Blake 7, and he's about half a dozen Blake 7s or so. So he's integral part of setting up that first series of Blake 7. But what I really love about this is just how eager and how keen Michael E. Bryant is in here. So one of the points that always gets thrown at this is how dull Luxurious looks, because it's basically a clay pit. It's a clay quarry. And that's all down to Michael E. Bryant, because, they said, okay, you're going to make this, you're going to an alien planet, you need a quarry. Here's the list. There you go. It's on the back of a receipt. There's the list of all the quarries that will go. And Michael E. Bryant goes, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to find my own quarry because I want this to be a little bit more special. So he goes off and finds his own clay quarry, thinking this is the nuts. This is going to look, brilliant. It's still going to look like outer space, but it's not going to look like the same outer space that everyone else does. Obviously, it goes a little bit to shit when it starts raining and the clay turns into clay and everyone gets stuck in it. But just as well that he's brought along these proper moon buggies. He's found some moon buggies out there, and he's managed to get some moon buggies on set so they can have proper moon buggies to trundle around in, which turns out really handy because I can move the camera because it's all bogged down in clay. So they stick the camera on the top of these moon buggies and use the moon buggies to do the shooting. And one of the moon buggies gets a huge dent in it because he chucks a rock off the top of the cliff, and he goes, that doesn't look realistic whatsoever. That just looks like a polystyrene rock falling down a big cliff of clay. Tell you what, stick a couple of weights in there so it bounces down properly like a rock, and it does, and it bounces straight into this moon buggy, which then gets a big dent in it. It gets toppled over, has a big dent in it, which the BBC have to pay for because they've got these moon buggies on the understanding, well, actually, we'll treat them really canny. We'll be dead gentle, and we won't put a single scratch on them and send it back with this big fuck off dent in it. And just stuff like that, you can just see the actual enthusiasm of Michael E. Bryant just cracking on. There's that fight at the end between Dale Winton and is it Derek Ware that he's fighting in the mud or the pond, basically, by this point at the end, where Michael E. Bryant's just like, no, go on guys, go have a big fight in that big pond. It's a big pond. I'm like, yeah, but fine, it'll look great, just go and have a big fight in it. But does the fight really need to be 5 minutes? It does, yeah, just go on. It's got to stretch it out, go have your big fights. Or well, I'm he's big strap. It's fine, man. He'll just pick you up and fight you and pick you up again and fight you again and put you down. So yeah, but his assistant is another key part of this, because his assistant, the guy who's out there finding these moon buggies to put big dents in them and sorting out the deals and everything, is the guy who gets his face on the actual adjudicator's pass. You look at it, when you look at the credentials, and Joe finds them in the Master's back to front TARDIS and goes, hold on a minute, that's not the adjudicator, this guy's the adjudicator. Look who this guy is here. It's Graham Harper.
Is it Graham Harper?
It's Graham Harper, and it's that photo of Graham Harper that's in that that pass is the one that gets used in The Brain of Morbius when we are going back and doing the pre-Hartnell doctors in the fight scene in The Brain of Morbius. So what does that mean? Does that mean that actually the real adjudicator is Doctor Who? He's a pre-Hartnell doctor, and the Master's done something to Doctor Who. He's made him regenerate into, I don't know, Philip Hinchcliffe or someone.
Well, you know you got the job of the adjudicator, don't you? How Graham Harper got that, because he went to the interview and showed lots of lovely energy.
Lots of lovely energy.
Instant hire.
What do you do with the adjudicator? Well, I'll just go in there, I'll run like the clappers. That's it.
Are we trying to suggest that Doctor Who is the next Doctor is going to be Graham Harper?
It could quite possibly. No.
Christmas special. Billy Piper's the Doctor. She regenerates at the end of it, and suddenly it's Graham Harper.
It's Graham Harper. He sits down and regenerates into Philip Hinchcliffe, and it just keeps going like that. Going around.
A show so now used to eating its own tail. Anyway.
I was about to suggest Gary Downey there, but
Well, is an even tail joke coming up there, Joe?
Well, if the rumours can be believed about John Pertwee.
Yeah.
There's a man who could eat his own tail, apparently.
Well, there's only two people have urban myths that could suck their own knob, isn't there? That I know of.
John Pertwee.
One of them. One of them. Oh, okay. That's three then.
Because there's always stories when you're school that certain people like Marilyn Manson had ribs removed so they could suck their own cock.
Can't hear you. Get your microphone on.
Maybe do that.
Yeah, you got your mic up, Dave.
Is that better?
That's much better.
Excellent. No, and this is really not worth it now.
Have you been committed to it now? You're going to have to go for it.
No, I was going to say that at school there was always rumours that celebrities had their ribs removed so they could suck their own cock. And it was Marilyn Manson.
It was Marilyn Manson. Yep.
Yeah, so you're showing your age there. Showing your age there. It was always Prince in my year.
Was it? Oh,
yeah.
There you go. Anyway, suppose I should be prosecuting now, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
That's the format.
This is the format. For me, Colony in Space commits one big sin. I mean, I know you've given a list of all the stuff that the director went on to do, all of which are better stories than this. So it's this is the ground zero. They're better stories than this. This is the first Doctor Who. This is the first Doctor Who in how many years that's been away from Earth? What, like 3-4 years?
Or two and a bit, 2.5 maybe.
1.5.
Okay.
Been a while. Change.
Yeah. A while. Okay.
Well, since the War Games, technically.
Yeah. Well, this is what I mean. Right. Okay. So it's definitely the first Doctor Who story that would have been on an alien planet in colour.
Okay.
So there is this massive open goal that Colony in Space had to go all guns blazing and give us an alien planet that we know is a wonderfully designed alien planet. Looks exactly like people want to live there. Whereas now what happens is we get a grey quarry somewhere in the south of England. It is a massive wasted opportunity for Doctor Who as a whole to blunder this one. Obviously we'll get like alien planets later on in colour. It'll be look fantastic, but at the minute this is what we're presented with. It's such a promise and such a you could have done this. It's a massive missed opportunity. Absolutely huge missed opportunity, this one.
I think
And that's a thing that contributes to it being considered dull as fuck.
I think there's a good point there, but for two main issues. Oh. The bloody hell was that?
I like how you relieve the tension of the build up to that. I've just been, what's the balloons?
Do we know how that happened? Or why?
Nothing to do with me here. I've not pressed anything.
You couldn't, even if that was an accident, you couldn't have timed that better.
Anyhow,
Oh, man.
the two problems with that argument is, firstly, the story demands the planet is barren.
Yep.
The story demands that, the colonists have been for 2 years on this planet now, trying to colonize it, trying to grow crops. They can't because of the scrotums underneath, and their radioactive scrotums are
Radioactive scrotums.
Poisoning the earth, so nothing will grow. So nothing will grow on this planet. Ergo, it is barren. It's desolate.
Yeah.
It looks like a quarry. It looks like a clay quarry because, like we say, Michael E. Bryan wants a quarry that looks a bit different. So that is why it looks as grey as it does, because it's supposed to. It doesn't work if you make it bright and colourful. If you have lots of green plants.
But why is that here in this position of the stories then? Why is this here? Could they not have just done something else completely?
This is the second point, because yes, this is the first Doctor Who story in a year and a half where Doctor Who has went off planet. If you are watching in 1971, we are not watching in 1971. None of us were watching in 1971 unless one of you guys has got some really good oil of Olay in your back pocket. None of us watched this go out in 1971. We have all come to this out of order. We have all come to this piecemeal. This might have been the first Pertwee we watched. It might have been the last Pertwee we watched. It might have been somewhere in the middle. But I would say 95% chance we've got that we've watched Pertwee on a different planet before we've watched Colony in Space. So that argument kind of falls down on the basis that, well, yeah, in chronological order, but in actual order, in our enjoyment, it's not. I've watched Pertwee on what's the Planet of the Daleks? That one. Before I've watched this, I've watched Spiridon. I watched them on Spiridon.
Oh, yes,
watched them on Metabolist 3 twice. I've seen Pertwee all over the place before I've seen Colony in Space. So the fact that, it's his first time off world, it's not my first time off world with him. I've seen him plenty. So, it's not dull because of that reason.
We can only go on the chronological order it was broadcasting. People's personal entry and exit points into Doctor Who don't really affect the sort of planning of, they're not sat there filming this going, well, folk might be watching this in 2025 on a download service. What? Madness. It's not.
We can't judge it on that basis either. We can't say, well, this was terrible because obviously, it's the first one.
It's an opportunity they had. I mean, don't even do this story in this point. Sit and go, right, it's a Doctor Who story, first time off Earth for a year and a half, whatever. And then it's like going, and we need something that's going to look absolutely pop on a colour TV, this newfangled colour telly we've got now. Isn't it brilliant? And then they decide that this is the story they want to portray, regardless of whether it's supposed to be that in the story or not. Fine, yeah, maybe it is. But it's a case of they chose to do this story at this point in time in the broadcast of Doctor Who when they could have just done anything else. It would have been, a story about a planet where you could have fucking trees made out of glass or some shit like that or whatever, and just do it all the time with that. And it would have been absolutely, this looks amazing. This is what Doctor Who's supposed to look like. This is what Doctor Who can be. Doctor Who can be this show that goes on all these different areas and all these different planets, and no other show can do this. Instead, have another fucking quarry.
There's been 8 stories before this in colour? 7 or 8?
Yeah, about a 7 or 8, yeah.
They're all beige.
Yeah.
They're all beige as fuck. So are we saying they're all dull as well because they're not doing fantastic colour? It's not really until...
They were like grounded in some kind of realism, you know, in Earth that we related to. We knew.
Bessie is grounded in realism.
I'm not talking about
Bessie's a good bit of
fucking
colour, I'll
car.
give you
I'm
that.
talking about the fucking locations, all right?
Everything is yellow and beige.
Yeah, that's British TV in the 70s.
1970s. Yeah. It's, you know, it's
Even if they had decided, even if they
dull and beige and sexual assault.
Are we going to say that the other 8 before this then are all guilty of being boring because they're is Claws of Axos, because that's basically yellow and beige.
For the purposes of this series, yes. And I would argue that Claws of Axos inside the ship is probably more along the lines of something you'd want to put out, other than for your first. That was a ship on a planet Earth, obviously. For your first full-scale alien planet, you'd want something else a bit more.
What about Inferno? Is that dull?
Dull as fuck.
Dull as fuck.
Absolutely dull as fuck.
Doctor Who goes an alternative dimension and it looks exactly as beige as the one he's come from.
Yep. Dull as fuck. Get Inferno in the fucking bin. Why that fucker got past, I've no idea. It's enraged me.
And your son.
Look at me. And my son. Yep. Look at me. Look at me. We're a family now, bitter and twisted.
With a beige t-shirt on your beige couch.
That's like Dave says.
This is not a bit. Speaking of 1970s.
70s colour scheme.
70s colour scheme.
Yep,
Yeah,
70s colour scheme. Space Invaders.
That is what television.
Which probably has more colour to it and pizzazz than anything this does. On fucking Space Invaders arcade cabinet.
The BBC had a lot of catching up to do with colour. A lot of the television around this time, no one is really pushing that. No one's really good. I tell you what, if we make everything, red and blue, and it's not until something like the Three Doctors comes along that has got that burst of colour around it. And what does everyone say about that? Well, it looks as cheap as shit.
Yeah.
Not Colin Smith, Carnival of Monsters, that's got loads of colour in it, and everyone says, oh, that looks shit. Look at him with his sweaty helmet.
His sweaty helmet. Who's got a sweaty helmet in Carnival of Monsters?
The ringmaster, the guy with the
those studio lights are very hot, so
he's
take a pic.
got that see-through helmet.
Yeah.
It all got steamed up with his sweat.
Yeah. Anybody wearing lycra?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But
Should we move on from that?
We probably should move on. We've mentioned sweaty helmets. We've had scrotums tonight and sweaty helmets tonight.
We've had quite a lot of scrotums.
Joe Ford isn't even here.
Well,
my notes said, the BBC, the colour here, should have gone in serious and gone in hard. And I was like, oh no, Joe's going to run with that. So I thought, better not.
Well, on the subject of scrotums, and that's a sentence I never thought I'd say on the Post Box Live.
No, you did that.
I did, though. I'll just share the screen from Blue Sky. Lucy McCall says the options for episode title are growing. Dead scrotums everywhere. Must be an early leader.
Probably, yes.
It's up there. It's up there.
This will be the moment around about lunchtime tomorrow, Lucy, where Lee texts both Dave and I and goes, "So episode titles then," and there's a little WhatsApp vote.
Yeah.
Pick wisely. I've got 4 written down already, so a lot of choice.
How many of them are my mum friendly?
None of them.
Brilliant.
Absolutely none of them.
How many are either scrotum or scrotum adjacent?
And how many are going to get us kicked off YouTube?
Let's see. What we've got? I reckon we're safe on. Yeah, right. I reckon we're safe on 2, not so safe on an R2. So
excellent.
Okay.
There you go. We cliffhanger for you.
Nice.
Some more comments have been coming in while we've been doing all that. Daniel Ronsley says, Graham Harper, lots of lovely energy. Scarif Bollis asks about the moon buggies. Are the moon buggies a positive?
Yes. Yes, they are.
They are a positive.
Yeah.
They need somebody to test it. So who can we get to test it? Some say he's a friend to the master, and it takes tea with the scrum heads. All we know is he's called the I am size steak.
He would have a helmet the shape of a scrotum. That's how you differentiate that steak.
Who else is oh, Gareth Bowles been back in touch to say that Michael O'Brien could have put some balloons in a quarry.
He could have, yeah.
Bring some pizzazz to everything.
That's what I thought the point was when I saw these balloons come up. I was like, well, it could have been like this. And don't these look shit? And I thought it was going to be.
Do you know that cost us a lot of money? Inflation.
Oh, Jesus.
Let's veer away from that very quickly. Let's go back to an answer about the ongoing saga of Joe Llewellyn and the snake. You wanted to find out what happens. So he didn't have a gun on him, and with the fire danger and the shovel was a safer option. There is a dry creek nearby, and the buzzards will dispose of the snake.
Wow.
You have to bury the detached heads as the meat bees. The meat bees will ingest the venom and become more dangerous, according to my wife who grew up in the country.
The meat bees?
See, this is where they should have filmed this. Wow. Somewhere with the meat bees and the rattlesnakes.
Meat bees.
They're out there, man. Be vigilant.
Is that an American term for something else? Is that like, is a meat bee like a badger or something?
It's like some fucking hornet shit.
Made of bacon.
Like carnivorous hornet.
He says that his wife grew up around there, and she told him about the meat bees. I don't know if that's just the thing that locals tell people. Yeah, you've got to watch out for the meat bees. That'll teach them.
Don't eat the honey of the meat bee.
Yeah.
Less said about the burger of buzzards, the better.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. Jeez. Oh.
While we ponder the threat of the meat bees.
You just throw the sneaky body away for the buzzards. They grab that, but you have to have the head and bury the head.
The sting of the meat bees, that's a big finish, isn't it?
Doctor Who and the sting of the meat bees.
Oh, that's the 1972 annual, that.
Yeah.
I've just realised when I put this episode out, I'm going to have to put a trigger warning in the episode description because Daniel Ronzo says, Nicolas Cage voice, no, not the meat bees.
Don't.
So I have to be careful.
Please don't insult Wickerman. Please.
While we consider the threat to meat bees.
Favourite films, Wickerman.
I know. It's crossed the line.
I know.
While we consider meat bees, let's go to the next point then. So I believe that is yourself, Cameron Phillips. Do you want to give us a point for contribution?
Oh, right, okay. Sorry, I didn't realise it was coming towards me. Oh, yeah. The cliffhangers for the first two episodes are pretty much A, the same thing, and B, the second one is a machine with googly plastic claw hands on it. What in the name of fuck? Oh, God.
Because it shifts the plot along. Because you have the first cliffhanger where the Doctor gets menaced by the shitbot going to claw him.
Yes.
And then this is episode 1 where there's only really the colonists involved. And then you have episode 2, which introduces the miners, but it doesn't introduce the miners straight away as straight up the bad guys. They clearly are, but it's not really, telling exactly how bad they are. And then that cliffhanger where the shipbot comes back in with the lizard claws on it, and you link that, well, actually, these guys died of lizard claws. This is now actually what's lizard clawed them to death. It's the shipbot. The shipbot is done by the miners, ergo the miners are the ones that have been killing the colonists all this time. They're full of shit. Dun, dun, dun.
As an image, though, disregard all of that. As an image, is there a moment in Doctor Who that is as Scooby fucking Doo as this? A machine with plastic claw hands on it. He'd have done it too had it not been for you pesky Time Lords.
You're asking if that's the most Doctor Who Scooby-Doo moment. It's not the most Doctor Who Scooby-Doo moment in this series. There's so many bits in this where the Master pulls his mask off and basically said, I wouldn't have got away with it if it wasn't for you pesky kids. That's all Scooby-Doo. There's nothing wrong with it because it works. So yeah, that's Scooby-Doo-esque, but
Scooby-Who!
I mean, Joe Grant is literally just jumping into Pertwee's arms the entire time, asking for a Scooby snack.
Yeah.
Not a euphemism, we think.
Yeah.
We hope. Shuffling on the floor. It was asking for his Scooby snack that got John Barrowman into trouble in the first place.
Zoinks.
No, I say the first two cliffhangers. The first two cliffhangers are essentially the same fucking thing, and I was like, it is fucking ridiculous. It's one of those moments where, you know, you sit with like someone who isn't into Doctor Who, or they walk into the room and they see that kind of stuff, and like they wonder why the fuck you wasted your life watching this show.
Yeah, but we
It's
all
one of
wonder
those
that.
moments.
Yeah, because that's because they haven't seen the first one, so they don't get why they look the same and how that moves the plot along.
No, I'm just saying, standalone. Here's a machine with plastic hands on it. Scary, scary. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also
No.
got a projector fitted to it.
Yeah, which has, you know, people can be terrified of a projection of a fucking iguana.
Well, that doubles the
Which
threat.
is-
It's got big, massive claws, but the projection will show the remake of the Wicker Man as well.
Well, it's true. Although now I won't be able to see the projection of the iguana without imagining Joe putting a fucking spade through its head. You know?
Well, a cinder block flows into the shop.
Yes. Yeah.
30-foot buzzard comes down to steal the body.
You got it.
You gotta bury it away from the meat bees.
The meat
Just
bees
remember.
The meat bees are
Gotta-
over in the corner going, that's a nice head. You can finish that?
We will make some honey with the meat bees.
Do you want that head? We'll take it if you don't want it.
Yeah. Just, you know. Sorry.
If anybody's just tuned in at this moment,
Just say this.
a rewatch might be necessary.
4 white guys from the north of England / Scotland losing their fucking minds over the internet.
So anyhow, we open on a field of stars.
Let's start from the start. Let's go through every single episode bit by bit. We've got our next.
The night is young. Why not?
The night is yet young. Yeah.
But do you know what that second cliffhanger made me realise? One of the small points I've got for the defence.
Go on.
Occasionally in Doctor Who, you notice when things aren't there. And what would usually happen if this was a modern story is the Doctor would whip out the sonic screwdriver, point at the thing with a claws, problem solved. That has become such a crutch for Doctor Who to use that to solve all the problems.
Oh, yeah.
In this story, they don't have it and they don't use it. So the Doctor has to think for himself, he has to think on his feet, and he actually has to engage with the problems rather than just sonicking them all away. So I think that's a great point for the defense for this story, is that it doesn't use the modern Doctor tricks to move the story along and stop the bad guys.
Which haven't been invented yet anyway.
Second that point and point to the lack of psychic paper, because the Doctor has no credentials in this. This is a big point, that the Master has the credentials. We know the Master is not the adjudicator. He's the Master, for Christ's sake. He's got a goatee beard and cackles. How can you possibly think he's sensible? But, the fact of the matter is he has his credentials, obviously forged, but done really well, whereas the Doctor has none. So it's just Hulk again, isn't it? It's Hulk just, bringing that nuance in, bringing that subversion of ideas of, well, actually, the good guys aren't on the right side of the law on this point. The bad guys are on the right side of the law. The law makes the bad guys right. What do you think of that, kids?
Yeah.
Red flag.
But yeah, in this story, the Doctor has none of the stuff that we're used to having in the modern day.
Yeah.
Like now, it's a big thing in the story if he gets the TARDIS taken away or the Sonic taken away. And this, he's got nothing. All he's got is intelligence, his wits, and his natural friendly charm. And he somehow makes it work.
Absolutely.
Again, we're filing stuff under the defense tonight of not actually referencing Colony in Space, but saying, oh yeah, there's stuff comes along later that this doesn't have.
But as I just said, in this, he loses the TARDIS. He doesn't have that. He's got nothing. He's got no TARDIS, no unit.
And anyhow,
he's got Joe, and that's
it's
it.
kind of perfunctory to the actual story, though, the TARDIS. Bar the start, isn't it, to get them there in the first place? You can't need the TARDIS anyway. There's no point where he kind of goes, I wish I had my TARDIS.
And anyhow, objection to that point. You've just mentioned colourful planets that come along later.
Yeah, but then I'm right.
Yeah.
So,
Not as right as we are.
What's the difference?
Okay, we got any more to add on that particular points from the prosecution? Are we happy with what we have?
Not really.
Says
But
that
then
we're happy
again,
with what we have. Kieran Evans has been in touch to say the Meat Bee sounds like the sequel to The Green Death.
Does.
Gareth Bowley says that Sergeant Benton and the Meat Bees get your lovely din-dins. There's your big finish on the box set right there.
Nice.
So there we go. That's another one for the Doctor Review Annual. Joe Llewellyn says it's a great band name. Meat Bees are yellow jackets and they're mean as hell.
Oh, right, like yellow. Right, yeah. They will be. Yeah, man.
And Joe taking every single one of those as well.
Yep.
Spade or no spade.
I mean, as Lee and Dave will know, when I hear Yellow Jacket, my first thought is a cocktail bar in Carlisle.
no, Heidi High, no.
No, I know. No, bit too young for that.
There's a cocktail bar in Carlisle?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
There's a couple now. Oh, we're getting advanced. You know,
enjoying the future.
There's folk come over from Newcastle for an out in Carlisle, probably because they've got criminal records and banned from bars in Newcastle. But never mind.
Yeah, and York's full.
Yeah.
I came over to Carlisle for the Carlisle Comic Con one year.
Did you?
Yes, I met my namesake, Frazer Hines.
Well, yeah, they said we were there.
We were there.
Yeah. All of us were there.
When Fraser was telling really dodgy stories on stage.
Aye.
About wandering off with Wendy Padbury's skirt.
Yeah, where we kicked off his own panel because the guy never turned up until about halfway through.
Yeah.
We were there.
We were in the room as well.
Well, there you go. We were right to the front. I think we was right to the front.
So were we.
Do you remember a guy asking Frazer Hines quarks or crotons?
Was that you?
That's me.
Wow.
Makes sense. Checks out.
Yep.
Well, bloody hell.
We should have coordinated better.
It's a small world, isn't it?
Who would have thought a Doctor Who podcast world would be so small?
That we'd end up in the same room during a Comic-Con and never meet each other. Wow. Next time.
Right, enough of all these yesterdays. Let's get back on to the trial.
Dave,
give us another point for the defence, please.
This is going to go back to the Scooby-Doo point. Every story in this season so far, we have been taught that the Master is in disguise. And anyone who turns up randomly will be the Master. In this story, we get somebody who turns up randomly, bedraggled, seems a bit weird, knows more than he's letting on, and he's not the fucking Master. And I think that's a great bit of storytelling. Because as soon as he turns up, you think, oh yeah, that's going to be the Master. He's going to pull a mask off. And he looks pretty similar to the Master anyway, so it'll be easy. And I kept thinking, right, he's going to do the reveal. He's going to do the reveal. Yep, he's on the side of the miners. He's definitely going to do a big reveal any second now. And then the adjudicator arrives. It's the Master. You're like, what? I didn't expect that. Because you know he's going to turn up. He has throughout this series.
Yeah.
And you're spending the first half of this waiting for the Master to turn up. And you think you know who it's going to be. And then it's not. And I think it's a really nice way of doing it because the Master's not even really in disguise in this. He still looks like him. He's not using any control over anyone. He's not using any powers. He just turns up with a fake ID. Which is, again, a massive departure from the way he's acted in every other story in this series. But it's still believable as behavior from the Master.
Yeah.
So I think, again, it goes back to the really great writing of it's still behavior that you understand, but it's not behavior you can predict. Which is what the Master should be like.
My interest in what Dave's just said lies in his description when he said there's a fella turns up and it's not the fucking master. Which sounds to me like someone is sick of the sight of the master.
No.
And going back to...
It's more my aggressive confusion because I thought it would be the master. I was watching, I was like, yep, that's going to be the master. That's going to be the master. Because I don't remember when we did it last because I've burned it from my mind. But I knew the master's going to turn up. So I'm watching the going, that's going to be the master. That's him right there. And then it's almost offensive that I got tricked by the story because that wasn't the master. That's why it's not the fucking master. And it's really well done.
So it's not an element that you're maybe tired of seeing the master and could do with a story that's actually without him for once in this series, and how he seems to be just the basis of absolutely everything, with the same stupid plan to steal a weapon that he's had in the previous story not so long ago that didn't bloody work then and probably won't bloody work now.
Yeah, but it's the master. He's always got fiendish plans that don't work.
It might
The
work.
same one?
Yeah.
Yeah. He'd have done it too had it not been for you pesky.
Yeah, he's going to do the same thing he tries to do every night, try and take over the world. That's the master.
The world, yes. The master and the brain. The master and
Yeah.
the brain.
Master and the scrotum.
Gareth Ball is backing you up here, Cameron, because it does say that the disgruntled and the master not there at that point sounds like a prosecution point.
Yeah, yes, it does, doesn't it, Gareth? Doesn't it? I just, if you're going to look at irritation and body language, that was definitely a bit of a weird giveaway there. Not the fucking master.
I think the master pops up at just the right point in this, because, like you say, it doesn't make it a master-centric episode. I mean, the clever thing is obviously we open on a field of stars, which is the Time Lords telling us the master's going to be in this at some point, because it's kind of like a little prologue of like, oh, the master's he's twacked the plans, hasn't he? What's he done with the Doomsday Weapon plans? Like, he's got the file somewhere, and then you completely forget about the master because you're just having so much fun with the colonists and the miners and everyone playing cowboys and Indians. Well, however problematic that might be, you just lose sight of the master. I mean, I didn't expect the master. It's Among Us. Have you played Among Us?
Yeah.
So you know how like you do a self-report. It's like, oh, I've killed this guy, and now I'm going to do, and everyone just goes, yeah, self-report. You're sus. You're out the airlock. That's what they should do with is it Norton? Is that Graham Norton? That guy. Yeah. So that had us howling because I was really into Among Us the first time I watched that. I was like, self-report. Anyhow, so yeah, I totally got swept up, and you forget the master is going to be in. Even though you've been told right from the start the master's going to be in this, and then he pops up and well, of course it's him. But it is just that clever thing of the master isn't coming along and trying to hypnotize people, and he's just been being really sneaky and pretending to be someone, but he actually plays his part. He does it well. He sits down as the adjudicator and he goes, well, actually, yeah, I've looked at both sides, and well, they've got kind of the law on their side, really. They're the bad guys. I'm going to play into Hulk's narrative of the ones who are wrong are in the right legally, and make that point. And then he's kind of like, oh, unless of course there's any, I don't know, hidden super weapons underground that might save your planet. Anyone seen any of those lying around?
Just casually lying about.
Yeah. And then he's obviously is still a master because he's got his TARDIS, he's got his little tricks in there, and he's got his little Cherry Bakewell detonator, which is the interesting thing about that. It's kind of like it's not the cliffhangers which are so bad, it's more to the resolutions. It's like, right, I'm going to kill Joe Grant now because someone else has walked into my TARDIS. Don't know how, but they've done it, so I'm going to press the Cherry Bakewell now, and the Doctor just goes, IKEA, and trots it out his hands. Like, why didn't you just do that to start with? Why didn't you just storm them straight away? But
they need to stretch it out somehow for the 6 parts this story is.
Yeah, that's the point, because someone said, didn't they, this doesn't need to be 6 parts.
Yeah, I think it was Hannah
Oh,
Cooper and Viewer Evans that suggested it should be like make a really nice compact four-parter.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. There's a four-parter. There's a brilliant four-parter here somewhere.
Unfortunately, though, it does need to
that.
be 6 parts. It does need to be 6 parts because that's what the production schedule has dictated. That this is going to be a 6-part story. The one that after it's 5 parts because that's they've done 2 4s. They've done another 6. So this one needs to be a 6 as well. So unfortunately, it must be 6 parts. So who are you going to give it to? Who's the man who's going to be able to take your 4-part and stretch it out into 6 and do it really well and fill it full of IKEA and rifle shootouts and lovely scenes of the Doctor and Joe having a little moments of charm in the TARDIS. Mac Hulk.
He's your man.
He's your man.
The Incredible Hulk. Yep, the Red Hulk. If you
the Red Hulk, yes.
Red Hulk.
Yes. Yes. It's where were we? Yeah, it doesn't have to be. I know what you're saying. It's 6 parts because the schedule made it that way. Yeah, fine. Yeah, it had to be that way. But from a story point of view, it could have benefited with not being 6 parts.
This
is probably.
But again, it's not alone in that. There's plenty of other stories out there which are 6 parts long or 7 parts long, or
none of which we are talking about tonight, though.
But we're setting a precedent. If you're going to say, well, this one's guilty because it's 6 parts, then there's a lot more out there which are also going to then have to be locked up in Doctor Who prison with shit CGI Omega. Think on that.
With Terror of the Autumn.
Too soon. Right then, are we done with that point?
I think so.
We've exhausted it. Okay, before we go to summings up, Gareth, please been saying Cherry Bakewell or Deathly Fakewell.
Indeed.
These mix. Right then, let's have some summons up then. Let's just go down the order we've been going tonight. So, Fraser, do you want to give us your summing up as to why Colony of Space is not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please?
Well, it's not guilty because it's really good. It's a really good story. Yes, it's 6 parts and there is padding in there, but when you've got someone that can pad as well as Mac Hulk, you don't mind because the padding's really good. There's got moments of charm in there. There's the back and forth between the good guys and the bad guys because no one's really a good guy, and there's bad guys who are proper bad guys, but there's also good bad guys who are good guys because you've got nuance, you've got shades of grey, you've got levels and depths, just like you have with the underground city of the Scrotum Heads, which is the second part of the story, which is also really entertaining because you've got some really funny looking monsters who are really entertaining, especially the little guy with his head coming out of his box. It's fun, really. It works on so many levels. It works on that level of you've got something really intellectual to kind of get your teeth into and say, well, this is an allegory. This is telling us a tale about colonialism, about capitalism, about land rights. It's telling us, but it's also telling us a really good sci-fi story about what happens when you get these ultimate weapons of Armageddon and you can't use them, and what happens to your society on that. So but in the meantime, you've also got moon buggies shooting around a clay quarry. You've got Doctor Who throwing old Greg around with a spear. You've got more shootouts than the actual gunfighters. You've got Gail Platt saying Jim will fix it, which is never less than slightly perturbing and funny. Yeah, it's just got everything. It's got some lovely model work. It's got Dudley Simpson really trying to figure out what to do with, some electronic equipment. He'll get there, guys. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it's just one that is a lot better than a lot of people have said if you give it a good chance.
Okay. Strong summing up from Fraser on the defence there. Let's go to Cameron. Let's have your summing up as to why it is guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please.
If we could go through, say, most of the points this evening, it has terrible cliffhangers. It's very problematic in its presentation of indigenous species, indigenous races, and things like that. It's, again, the Master is out, steal big weapon plan. It doesn't really change much from that one. You should think he probably would have learnt by now. It looks completely dull, and that is my main point. Getting back to the main point I was saying, it's a complete open goal and a waste opportunity. They could have had any other story that would have given them some sort of brightness and some sort of colour, and give people what Doctor Who can do, which not many other shows can do, and certainly weren't doing at that time, and give us a colourful alien planet to visit and a story based on there. But no, we get a grey, dull as fucking dishwater, bloody quarry-like planet in the middle of fucking nowhere. So guilty by association on that one. It's what we get is plain, dull, and underwhelming. Colony in space, colonoscopy and disgrace, more like.
And finally, Dave, let's have you summing up as to why Colony in Space is not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, please.
To an extent, the clue is in the title for this. This is a Western in space. Avatar got mentioned earlier. It's also Dances with Wolves. It's got science fiction, spaceships, and time travel, but it's the story of some settlers who spent years scraping at dirt trying to survive, who are then usurped by the big landowner with their private army. If you are in the 70s sitting down and watch this with your kids, then this story is the same as half the Westerns that you've grown up watching. But it's also got the Scooby-Doo stuff for the kids. So even though it's got lots of new shiny toys, when you get right down to it, it's a warm, familiar story, which is a great way of doing Doctor Who and science fiction. There's mentions in this of the top 3 causes of death of hundreds of people on Earth are traffic accidents, suicide, and pollution. This is very environmentally aware that Earth is going to a bad place if we keep doing what we're doing. We've got this civilization that's gone all the way up to the top levels of technology and then fucked themselves. And we are currently in a world where we've got Elon Musk and AI, and people are starting to believe that technology will save us all. This is a warning that it won't necessarily. So it's a familiar story, relatively familiar settings, entertaining for adults and kids, but it also contains deeper stories and deeper warnings about the way we should behave both to the planet and to each other. So as much as you can say it's dull and boring, it's really not, because as soon as you scratch the surface, there's so much there.
Okay, then. Another strong summing up from the defence. So, oh, sorry.
And also,
yes,
we never mentioned the sacrifice of Ash, who dies for save his friends.
Yeah.
But it's not the big Hollywood, no, I must go now to save my friends. It's just a side note. That guy died to save everyone he knows, just because it was the right thing to do. Doesn't get mentioned. And we also didn't mention Security Guard Alan. And I know that was probably his second name, but I just felt like that was his first name, Security Guard Alan. I thought, why is everyone so familiar with Security Guard Alan?
Nobody talks about Alan. It's a forgotten man.
But yeah, there we go. That's the end of the summing up for me.
There we go. There's Dave's reasons why it's not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. You've heard all sides. It is now down to you. So based on the arguments put forward by Dave, Cameron and Fraser tonight, this is your last chance to decide Colony in Space's fate. If you've not already done so, go to tinyurl.com/postbox colony, or you can scan the QR code just to the right of Dave's head there, and it'll take you straight to the poll. We will close that in just a couple of minutes' time. Before we go for the break, while all that happens, Joe Ford's been back in touch to say, Griff, are you still talking? Fraser's on, of course you are. Love you.
I had 3 points written on the back of a receipt. He had 100, and he's calling me out. Pot, kettle, black.
Quality, not quantity, eh, Fraser?
This is it.
There you go. Also back in touch, giving us all the answers tonight on the natural world. There's Joel the Wall, who says meat bees are wasps.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Okay.
That answers that question.
That does answer that question. You see, I love the fact though it's like difference, like in like America and the UK. In the UK, wasps will be like, well, they might build a nest in your shed. You have to spray it with the the foam stuff. And then whereas in America, it's like they're gonna eat a snake's head. That's I love it. I love those little differences between America and the UK.
Yeah. And on that note, I think the final word tonight really has to go to Lisa McCall, who has been in touch with Blue Sky to say, Thanks to your lot's reaction to the meat bees, I have just snorted Diet Coke out of my nose.
Nice.
And it was snorting Diet Coke that got Russell T Davies in trouble in the first place. Allegedly.
Coke.
Allegedly.
Yes.
Okay, right, this is your last chance. We're going to go for a break. When we come back, we will reveal the result of whether Colony in Space is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, and whether it goes into our official and unofficial canon of Doctor Who, and whether this series goes down to the wire next week. We'll be back in a few minutes. Go and cast your votes if you've not already done so. We'll be back with the results very, very shortly. And we're back. That is it. The poll has closed. It is all over. It is time to find out if Colony in Space is guilty or not guilty of crimes against Doctor Who, and whether this series goes down to the wire next week. Here is how you voted. By the narrowest of margins, it is guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Cameron takes it 52% to 48%, all of which means that the series is tied 2-2 going into next week's final episode, The Demons, on Wednesday night. Cameron, congratulations.
Thank you very much. That's
the face of a man that wasn't expecting this.
Someone expected. Oh, wow. Okay. I'll take it.
You know what? There is somebody out there you have to thank very, very much, because that poll was sitting at 50-50 for the last 25 minutes. So someone's vote has made all the difference tonight. One person, by the looks of it.
Wow.
So,
okay. Cool.
I'll forward on their address so you can send it an envelope stuffed full of cash to their door.
All right. Okay.
Frazer, commiserations. I mean, your champion of the damned has finally been beaten.
It's Brexit all over again and just a shit.
Dave,
man.
Yeah, if all you people who voted guilty, you know, where's your tangible benefits now? Yeah. Where's your sunlit uplands?
And you're still going to have to queue at the passport queue, aren't you? For ages and ages.
Yep.
Get into that mud quarry.
It's grey quarries, blue passports.
Enjoy
screwdrivers, psychic paper.
Enjoy having no fruit on your shelves.
MAGA, make Gallifrey great again.
Gallifrey great again, yeah.
Dave, you must be absolutely disgusted with our audience after that.
It's not the audience, really. I'm just thinking about how many different sites we've seen Cam pop up on this evening. It's quite suspicious, really.
It's a little bit, isn't it? I mean, talking of which, he's been in touch to say, it's all right, there's public gallery, isn't it?
Yeah. Suddenly there's multiple Camerons and he wins a really close vote. I'm not saying it should be investigated, but, you know.
Well, you know, Daniel Ronsley does say it's literally the Brexit verdict.
Bloody hell.
You might actually be off the hook, actually, Cameron, because the comment's just coming. It's from Joe Ford that says, I hope it was my vote.
Yep.
As I was saying to Joe when we were in the bathroom together this morning.
He has all my sock accounts.
Yep.
He has the passwords. Make sure everyone gets a vote.
It's weird because I'm sure Joe mentioned to me that you were his sock puppet, Cam. I don't know what he meant by it.
Well,
we're all crusty sock puppets to somebody.
Yeah, I thought I had a limp last few days.
Anyway,
yeah, it's a surprise result, but it's a close one. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, all of which means that this entire series goes down to the wire next week. We're going to be back on Wednesday of next week, thanks to the delay from last week and having to nudge it back a day as well. So
Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah, for shifting days.
I thought it was Thursday. I could still do it. It's fine.
It's just as well.
I didn't know it was a week tonight. Right, good job you mentioned that.
Yeah. That'll be for the Demons, and we'll be joined by Cy Hart, new to podcasting, and Lucy
New guy.
McCall.
Yeah, we'll have to
for
show
the
him the ropes.
series finale. We will find out at the end of next week's episode what the next series of the Post Box Live is going to be, chosen by our series winner. But before then, we're going to do something a little different, deciding who's prosecuting and defending. So I'll let Dave explain it because it was his idea.
So obviously, Cameron and I defend and prosecute, but it gets to the point sometimes, as Cam says, he's been prosecuting for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be nice for him for a change to defend. But because the winner of the series gets to choose what we do next, if I knew I was prosecuting the next thing we did, I'd choose something that I really wanted to kick the boot into and I could do it easily.
Mm.
So what the current thinking is, we will decide, whichever one of us wins, what we're doing next. We will announce, whoever wins will announce what we're doing for the next series, and then the results of a poll will be revealed by Lee, which will tell us who's doing what side.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I won and I said we're going to do Eccleston, then we would find out whether I was going to prosecute or defend.
Yeah.
I'm not going to choose Eccleston if I win. I'll say that right now, which is why I was safe to choose that one. So it's to stop me and Cam getting bored and going mental, but also to stop us fixing what we're going to prosecute and defend.
So from now on, the power is entirely in you, the viewers' hands, of who does what for the next series. So on that note, there's a poll running. After this episode goes out, we get to decide who's going to prosecute the next series of the Post Box Live. So you can cast your vote by going to tinyurl.com/postbox7. The poll is going to remain open until Tuesday night at midnight, and results will be revealed alongside the series winner's choice of series for next year. It's going to be on Wednesday's live show with Lucy and Cy. There we go. Cast your votes there. We'll reveal the results of that alongside the results of the Demons on Wednesday. There we go. I'll stick out a tweet with all the information on, and it'll be in the episode description. Also, you know where to go to find it. So that's it for tonight. Colony in Space has been found guilty of crimes against Doctor Who. Fraser, thanks very much for joining us once again. Champion of the damned, but not in this instance, it appears.
Well, technically it is damned, and I have championed it, so I feel my
technicality. Yeah, you'll get out.
But thank you very much for having us back on. It's always fun to come and discuss Doctor Who with you guys. So appreciate the opportunity again.
Fraser, always a pleasure.
Yeah. Always delight to have you here, and I'll see you in a fortnight on some other podcast, some other slightly lesser podcast that might be discussing Flux. I don't know. Delight to give them the publicity.
Yep.
So I will. While we're actually here, do you want to plug that lesser podcast that you're involved in? Or?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, he's cast his vote now, so I might just
Yeah, don't give him the oxygen of publicity. He's done his damage.
Yeah,
he's betrayed his husband. That's it.
Yep. Made his bed. He's gonna have to lie in it now. Crusty on it.
Crusty bed.
Yep.
I think it's me that makes the bed.
Before we sign off tonight, 2 more comments have come in. Daniel Ronsley says it's all up to Lucy now next week. No pressure, Lucy. And Gareth Boy asks who's going to pray for satanic powers to win next week. All of which will be revealed on Wednesday night. That's it for tonight. Colony in Space, Guilty of Crimes Against Doctor Who. Series decider on Wednesday, the 25th of June, with myself, Dave Cam, Lucy McCall, and Cy Hart. We'll put the Demons on trial. That's it for tonight, though. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks for sending in your comments. Thanks for voting. Just thanks for taking part in general.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Wednesday for the Demons. Until then, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, folks.